Is he tired?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents, a podcast. Keaton Weiss here, of course. Russell is in Seattle today. His flight was delayed several times yesterday, but he is on assignment today, day one in rainy Seattle. He is there in advance, of course, of the Worker Strike Back conference coming up this weekend, but he wanted to get his tourist on and go there a few days early since he had never been before. And it is not tourism season in Seattle. The winters are very rainy there, of course, so he has a lot of the attractions to himself. So I'm sure he will have some souvenirs on his shelf when we next see him. But today we, of course, have a special guest co-host, a friend of the show. He is the co-host of Truth Wire, also the host of Pasta to Go, and the filmmaker, of course, of the great documentary Lahaina on Fire. You all know him, Craig Pasta Jardula. Pasta, what's up?
What's up, Keaton? Thanks for having me on. It's always fun coming on the Do Dissident show, man. Love the work you guys are doing, and looking forward to having some great, important conversations.
Yes. Great pleasure to have you on, as always. I think the last time we spoke on air, at least, was before the election, when you predicted that Trump would win because you think the deep state actually wants him. You think the deep state actually thinks they can have their way with him easier. And, I got to say, for the most part, I think you're proven about right. I mean, certain elements of the deep state have really gotten what's coming to them, like the gender studies professors at the Ecuadorian School for the Blind, like they have been shown the door. A lot of the woke elements of the deep state have been purged for show. But what did you mean by that? I'm curious. Let's just talk about that for a minute. And what do you make of the first few weeks of Trump 2?
Well, good, because I have some questions for you, too, as well, because I was just thinking about something. I almost blurted it on out. I don't want to come on your show and start grilling you about things, but some questions I have for you as well, my friend.
Sure.
Because if we look at this overall picture, I would say that things are going according to as planned, right? I mean, I was talking to my good friend Don DeBar, who I've had on Jimmy's show before. He's a mentor, a great journalist too as well. He actually considered himself a Marxist, but a leftist that doesn't play into the culture war BS.
Right.
But we were discussing the fact that what are we seeing right now in front of us? Is there some sort of fragmentation from the ruling class, and they're trying to adjust to what's going on, or is everything going as planned? And I often look at these situations when I look at Donald Trump taking over from Joe Biden, everything that we see and the way things are accelerating, right? The truthers also often talk about this thing called we're in a time of acceleration, right? Where we have to accelerate to the fourth industrial revolution, to the Great Reset, looking at it from a mindset that the greatest threat to the ruling class, where any country, any nation, is its own citizens, making sure that they keep them under control. And everything we see coming in from Donald Trump is a continuation of what's going on for the most part of Israel, the Greater Zionist Project, but also squashing our Fourth Amendment rights, people have to look and understand that Donald Trump, on his second day of his presidency, standing up there and with guys like Larry Ellison, one of the co-founders and co-creator of Oracle. I mean, these guys want this kind of like crazy matrix style track and trace kind of policies. If you listen to them, they're supposedly everything that a lot of the populist right stood against. Right. Well, Donald Trump has just ushered them in. Now, ask yourself this question, Keaton. If it was Joe Biden standing up there with Larry Ellison and Sam Altman from ChatGPT AI, I mean, what would the right be saying about that? They would be rejecting it full and full. 100%. But it's allowed to happen under a Donald Trump, right? Yep. So when I look at everything that's taking place, who is the deep state exactly? We don't know. Is it oligarchs that sit above that? But whoever it is, the ruling class, I think, is getting what they want, and things are going according to plan, even though it's meant to be seen as an, oh my God, this is an outsider. This is, politicians. For instance, when you look at the whole situation, like you say, what is Doge? Well, they're cutting the waste and the fraudulent politicians and oligarchs that, were spending your money beyond belief and leaving you in the poorhouse. And you go, well, wait a second. Aren't you guys a bunch of politicians and oligarchs? Yeah, but these are good politicians and oligarchs, Keaton. Right. That's what's going on. It's meant to look like that, but it's not. It's going to as planned, and we should be rejecting, whether it be Republican or Democrat, whoever the ruling class puts in there to advance their agenda. We need to be rejecting it. And unfortunately, we see even more hero worshiping than Obama from the right. And like I said, it's going as planned. Sorry for mumbling on.
No. That's why I brought you here. I thought that's a perfect answer. I mean, I agree with every word of that. I don't think I would change one word of that. Because, when we interviewed Whitney Webb on Jimmy's show a few weeks back, and when you look at, pardon me, her work, which I think she has generally right, that, by delegating a lot of oversight of the public to the private sector, these oligarchs are able to create the illusion that it's not top-down control because it's in the market, right? It's in the private sector. These are entrepreneurs. These are the Ubermenches. These are the geniuses. Elon Musk is a super genius, right? Every Joe Rogan show now, the first half hour is what a super genius Elon Musk is. And so they ascended the hierarchy and the meritocracy because they're the best people. And so Elon Musk getting access to the Treasury payment system, that's not tyranny. That's the American dream, right? This guy climbed the ladder. And that to me is generally, broadly speaking, what's happening. And I think you're right. I mean, I think, like I said, I wouldn't have changed a word of that.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you a question? Because really, to tell you the truth, I think that, a lot of this show, when I watch your show, and I don't watch many shows, so I try to peek in on shows, and I don't catch a lot, but I catch what I want to catch. It's all about finding solutions. Like, I think, the whole point of us doing journalism, right? Independent journalism right now is because we want to figure out, what do we do next? How do we move forward? How does humanity move forward? Right. Like,
right.
And now Russell's in Seattle at this particular conference, this workers conference. And I think as we have the show today too, as we talk about the Libra scandal, I remember one show you did with Diane Sayre when you guys were talking about money and how it's pegged. I think these are big questions, because if this is how goods and services are moved around, and I'm talking about services, everything from medical services to food lines, food chain supplies, whatnot, information, I think it's important that we have to be solution oriented. So my question to you, Keaton, is do you consider yourself a socialist? I mean, where do you stand in a lot of these things? Because you have been very critical. And we've had a lot of texts behind the scenes about the Libertarian Party. I have mud in my face because I actually presented this. I was one of the first to start these shows before Nick and Angela did Rage Against the War Machine. Right. I was having Jimmy on with Dave Smith and Caleb on with Spike Cohen because I saw this type of bond on a non-interventionist mentality on our foreign policy. But where do you consider yourself, and how do you think that will lead to more solutions in the future?
Well, I would consider myself a socialist, broadly speaking. I don't really like to argue theory with people because I think it's first of all, kind of academic. And second of all, I think, these labels often drive more wedges between people than they do unite people. But I think the only solution now is an organized workforce that can make demands and exert them through militant labor actions up to and including, of course, widespread strike actions, whether they be union sanctioned strikes, wildcat strikes, or obviously the North Star would be a general strike. And, in preparation for the Worker Strike Back conference, we've been, going back and forth, trying to, do some coalition building, get as many different, people there from different groups as possible who are on board. And in an email exchange with one of the General Strike Washington State organizers, they said that, and I have no reason to doubt this, it takes 3.5% of a population to organize a successful general strike. Yeah. And that to me seems doable, and that's what we should work towards. In terms of majoritarian solutions, like winning elections, come on, man, this country is washed. This country is fucking washed. You got 60% of people now down for mass deportations. We're going to do a segment today. It's not on the thumbnail, but we're going to do a segment on Guantanamo Bay, which, hey, spoilers, they're not just sending violent criminals to Guantanamo Bay. Yeah. Okay, so you got 60% of people on board for that. We are going to try to do our best to try and speak some truth to power on that issue, because apparently very few other people will. And so we'll do our best in that case, in these realms, to try and win over as much support as we can. Yeah. But in terms of who's going to run against Trump, who's going to win the Congress, that's not. This country is broken. Wholesale, this country is broken. And what it's going to take is a committed minority that's willing to just shut the system down until certain demands are met, like universal health care, like a living wage, like defunding Israel. I'm very encouraged the Workers Strike Back, has an anti-genocide component in their list of demands. So that's our focus for this week. Are they the end-all, be-all of organizations? Am I going to be spreading the word about them far and wide to the exclusion of other causes? No, but that's the kind of stuff we need to be doing now. We need to be organizing workers to get a critical mass of people who are willing to lay it on the line to shut the system down until certain demands are met. We're not winning 80 million votes for good ideas. That's not happening. This country is gone in that respect. That's my opinion. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting because, so most of the socialists I've met, and I've met some in Latin America a lot, right? And it's more of a mindset of collectivism, right? It's really speaking deeply to what you just stated right over there. It's about coming together to push back against an imperialist force that wants to control their resources and send them into a lifetime of austerity and slave labor, right? So when you see that form of socialism, you see it built around this whole mechanism of labor, seize the means of productions. But the way it's been sold in the United States, and a lot of the people on the populist right, is that socialism is a mechanism where it has too much centralized control, right? And they often kind of tag the culture war issues to socialism, so therefore they can push back against it. And there's no doubt in my mind that the oligarchs, the ruling class, they want to control labor. They want to control the resources. And that is their main goal, right? Russell says on your show all the time that these people hate you, right? They can't stand you. And I feel that way too. But it is interesting the way you see a lot of people on the populist right kind of parallel, or at least attach, censorship, pushing against people's personal freedoms, looking at socialism in an authoritarian mindset. So therefore, there can be no advancements on that field of that realm over there. So we are in a quagmire right now, because even when I do talk to people who are anti-socialist, I can understand a lot of them about too much centralized power. And the people that you're talking about, let's say, it's interesting because I think the workers' movement is a little bit different than the leftist movement in the United States, because the same people that I would get in the streets with for Palestine, for Gaza, are the same ones that were very militant and authoritarian minded when it came to the COVID restrictions, which I didn't buy into right away, only because I looked at it as like, well, these are the same people that we didn't trust for years. These are the same corporations that don't care about this. These are the same corporations that want to see us dead. There's too many of them. Why are we going to entrust in them? So there was a lot of people that I met when I was out in LA in some of the Palestinian rallies that were had conversations with me, and they didn't like me because of my positions on COVID. They also, when I had made statements that I don't think a lot of the sexuality should be taught in our schools. They looked at that as being me being anti-LGBTI, QIA. So it's interesting, the parallels and everything we see going on, because I strongly stand with the people right now who are in the streets marching for Palestine and to stop this genocide and stop this ethnic cleansing. But they've also been very, very militant in the past and authoritarian, and they've actually been the ways the right could manufacture consent to move along their agenda and get their people following along too as well. It's just a very interesting time in situations, the way everything is split. But I do agree with you too in a lot of ways too, Keaton. Like, we should shut things down and demand things. But the problem is, we're in this, when we talk about this time of acceleration, we are in this mass kind of movement of where the ruling class understands that the way they maintain control is to split the people, keep them divided against each other. And they've been very successful at that.
Yeah, well, this is part of the challenge, and, we're going to be talking, by the way, folks, paid members are going to have live stream access at 8 p.m. tonight. We just booked this interview within the last few hours. We are going to be interviewing Chris Hedges tonight for paid members exclusively, and then we're going to be premiering that tomorrow on the main show. So if you're a paid member, you'll get an email shortly after the conclusion of this show. But he's a featured speaker at Workers Strike Back. Obviously, we're going to have Shama on the show on Thursday. So we're having two pretty long conversations about this conference in advance of the conference. Then we're streaming the conference all day. And part of what I'm going to try to impart upon the conference through both these interviews and on the stream itself is that the liberal class has successfully tarnished the brand of a lot of, broadly speaking, noble left causes. For instance, they have tarnished the brand of environmentalism, right?
Big time, big time.
By basically presenting it in the form of this New World Order screw job that has us sucking out of paper straws that dissolve in our mouth, disgusting, as Donald Trump said, while they fly to Davos in private jets, right? So you've taken a noble cause like care for the environment, and they've tarnished it. They've taken noble causes like LGBT rights, and they've tarnished that, right? Even public health, what you're talking about. Public health is a noble cause. Public health is very important. But they have managed to tarnish that. And so the question now is, do you take on all those fights at once and try and win back those causes for the left? Or what I'm going to advocate for, we strip down back to basics. Worker power, anti-war. We got to strip it down to that and build some credibility for the left again. Because the liberal class has destroyed the credibility of the left. And I think the only way to do that is not to spread ourselves too thin all at once, but to start on majoritarian issues like labor. And obviously, I think at this point, given the gravity of the Gaza genocide, I just couldn't get involved with any movement that didn't take a hard line on that. So I would add that very strong anti-war component as well. In my opinion, that should be the focus. That should be the focus. Nothing else at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean you don't fight discrimination, right? If you're a labor movement and a trans person comes to the labor movement and they said they've been denied housing because of their gender expression, or they've been fired from their job because of their gender, then of course I think you should go to bat for them just like you would anybody else who was treated unfairly at work, right? So I'm not saying you punt on all issues of like discrimination. I think you have to have a hard line on that. But in terms of what you organize around, it has to be majoritarian issues like labor, universal health care, and an anti-war agenda. And that's, to me, the way to go, is to strip it down and then build credibility. And then as you start maybe forming new parties, then you're forced to negotiate positions on these other issues. You cross that bridge when you get to it, because right now we have nothing. We have nothing. And part of the reason we have nothing is because the liberal class has successfully sabotaged and tanked the credibility of the left more broadly.
It's funny because you say that, say somebody from the LGBT community is discriminated against and loses their job because of that. Well, that's one of the issues. In fact, the left has made it full stop. Unless you are 100% with us, Keaton, you can't go on the rest of the other issues that you find to be more important. And I think that's one of the reasons why the left is so damaged in the United States. It's like, well, we can't talk to you about, look, the Rage Against the War Machine, the first one, right? So like about, all right, we agree with these people over here in the Mises caucus. Yeah, we don't believe in their economics, and we had certain things before in the past. But look at the way Medea Benjamin refused to talk because her party on the left said you can't speak in this because these guys, including people like Jackson Hinkle, are anti-LGBTQI. You know, they have their own issues in the past. The Mises Caucus has known to be racist. There was a reporter named Jackie Lukman who used to work for Sputnik who wrote an article on this, and everybody from that Answer Coalition detached themselves from that rally because they say we weren't left enough. Those of us on the left who participated in that. So, I mean, you are 100% right. They're using that to sabotage everything. And I do think that the left has been way more of a saboteur. What's the word? The French word saboteur.
Yeah.
If you could say it, you're smart. You
Saboteur. That's it.
Saboteur.
You're trying too hard. It's saboteur. Yeah.
My Sicilian tongue gets in the way.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, they have been way more. Had the more of the saboteur mentality, you know, and saying and being able to tear it down. But I mean, also too. I know you say we're not going to elect our way out of this. We're not going to vote our way out of this.
Right.
But we do need a mechanism in play at the end of the day. And this is what I would talk to my anarchist friends about. Like, I get it. Like, you want to have as much personal sovereignty over your own body, your own life as possible. But we're only one species on one planet. We're going to have to find a way to play nicely in the sandbox together. There is going to have to be some form of a government no matter what. You know, as much as I like to get away from it and as bad as it could be. So that's why I always kind of, no matter what, I digress back to the election system. And I think that, you know, you look at Shamra Swan is a great example of somebody on a local level that you can put in play that can actually stand up and work for the people. Right. So, I mean, that's why at the end of the day, for me, all roads lead to Rome, which is back to doing what I do best, and that's following elections, trying to get it straight, trying to get in a mechanism that's going to allow us to hire the right people, Keaton, and fire the wrong people. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to need that. So that's why my existence is the way it is. So I'll put that out there.
Well, no, I buy it. I dig it. All right. Well, speaking of censorship and free speech, which is an issue that the right has tried to reclaim from the left. You know, we saw J.D. Vance's big speech in Germany, of all places, where he spoke up for the rights of Christians to exert their influence over the culture, but not a peep about anti-war or anti-Israel protests. And boy, is that relevant today to our first segment, because this was an event that's actually happening right now as we speak. Thankfully, it is happening. It seemed for a little while there that it might not be allowed to happen at all. So tomorrow, February 18th, which is today, this was posted yesterday, whatever that name is, I don't know how to say that first one, House Berlin, will host a powerful day of solidarity, truth, and justice for Palestine with Francesca Albanese, the special rapporteur on human rights from the United Nations. They're going to live stream it to YouTube, and they also had a venue secured for the event. Important announcement. Later that day, the Berlin police will be present throughout the whole program today. We will not yield to the intimidation, but participants should be aware. We are providing a live stream starting at 5 p.m. local time, of course, with the keynote of Francesca Albanese. So they put on top of that poster, important announcement, the Berlin police notified us that they will be present throughout the whole program today. We will not yield to intimidation, but participants should be aware. Doors for ticket holders open at 2:30. We are providing live stream starting at 5 p.m. with the keynote speaker. Now, Yanis Varoufakis, who was one of the organizers of this, gave another update early this morning, Eastern Standard Time here in the United States. This would have been, noon or so local time in Germany. Breaking: German police banned DM25's venue, which is the organizer of the event, where Francesca Albanese was to deliver today a speech on Palestine. Our organizers have found another venue and are calling attendees to make their way to it. Help us defend democracy. So at the last minute, the day of the event, the German police banned the venue, causing them to have to switch venues to what ended up being a much smaller venue. So police pressure forces venue change for Francesca Albanese Berlin event. Urgent call to defend free speech. In a deeply concerning escalation, the organizers of Reclaiming the Discourse, Palestine, Justice, and Truth, an event featuring UN rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, are facing ruthless attacks on their fundamental rights to freedom of speech, assembly, and expression. The venue, Kurhaus Berlin, faced immense pressure from German politicians and the Berlin police to cancel the event. This is not only a disgrace, but a direct assault on the rule of law and the core principles of democracy. It also represents an attack on businesses coerced into submission through mafia-like tactics where intimidation has reached alarming extremes. In this critical moment, Jung Welt has offered us refuge, and the event will now be held at that address, however you say that, in Berlin. So a new address. Due to limited capacity with only 200 attendees allowed, the event will no longer feature an in-house live stream. Instead, the live stream will be available exclusively on our YouTube channel. Those with a live stream ticket are not able to enter the event, but instead can watch the broadcast. The change also means that there will be fewer available seats than originally planned, from 400 seats to 200 seats. German authorities, already responsible for canceling 2 events featuring Francesca Albanese, are now escalating their efforts to silence her voice even further. Now, Berlin authorities are ratcheting up their efforts to quash this crucial conversation, putting the organizers and panelists under extreme pressure and threatening disruption through overwhelming riot police presence, similar to the experience of the Palestine Congress 2024. In light of this grave situation, we are urgently calling on media outlets, legal experts, and human rights organizations to step in as observers and monitor and report on the dismantling of the rule of law and fundamental rights. We expect unlawful police interference against those who speak out against the genocide in Gaza and challenge German complicity. The right to free speech is under brutal siege, and as journalists, legal experts, and human rights organizations sworn to defend the Constitution and fundamental rights, we demand that you fulfill your duty to report boldly and extensively on Germany's complicity in the genocide in Gaza and its authoritarian slide. The world must stand witness as we defend democracy and human rights in Germany. So they switched the venue at the last minute, which creates a logistical nightmare, especially if you're live streaming the event. It is not easy to get that equipment set up and get the tech set up and get the internet set up and get everything organized. Not only that, they sent them to a smaller venue, so they had to basically lose half the house to the venue change at the last minute, same day. So you probably had people coming from far and wide. Francesca's a very famous figure. You may have even had people flying in for this who now couldn't go. So Yanis Varoufakis posts an update. The owners of the new venue, which does not depend on public funding, tell us that the police are pressuring them to cancel our event, wielding the threat that otherwise their venue will be shut down permanently. So this is a private business with no reliance on public funding, threatened to be shut down if they hold the event. Luckily, they did not cave. We intend to carry on, even if only on YouTube. So now that we're thinking maybe they're not going to have any in-person audience at all. Francesca arrives in Germany. Greetings from Germany. It's a sunny day, and we will continue to make it bright. Remember, hope is a discipline. So here come riot police gathering outside the new venue. They send all these riot police cars there. Here are the cops inside the new venue. It's happening now. German police entered the new venue to intimidate our people who remain intent to meeting with Francesca Albanese and Amnesty International. The police miss no chance to prove that totalitarianism is back in Germany even before the AfD has won government. Those elections coming up in less than a week, by the way. Not much further down the road of fascism they can slide, apparently. So here's some brief video of cops on the beats inside the venue. See, it's a pretty small gathering. Why is it crawling with cops? Why are there riot cars outside? Luckily, Francesca was able to participate. Now, like I said, this event's happening right now as we speak. It's kind of an all-day thing. But this is a statement that we have from her upon her arrival at the event from Jung Welt, which apparently is the new venue that agreed to host them at the last minute after the event was almost shut down entirely by the German police.
Hi, so first of all, I'm Francesca Albanese, Special Rapporteur of the United Nations on the Occupied Palestinian Territory. I'm very happy to be here, although I'm pretty shocked for the controversy that this event has stirred. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever and makes me really scared for where Germany is, where I have many friends and where there are people who need protection and not to be repressed any further. So I truly hope that the discussion will be peaceful, that there will be no tension, despite the fact that, frankly, I've never been in a place that has been received so many threats, intimidation, where the police has been checking on whether I could be arrested or not. This is pretty awful. And as European, I will never forget this. And I hope it will get no worse than this.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, most of us in this space are now pretty familiar with Francesca's work. We've seen a lot of videos of her. We've read a lot of articles about her and the way she is constantly smeared as an anti-Semite, despite the fact that she, of course, is not. If she's saying this is the worst she's ever had it in terms of a public speaking engagement, then that's pretty bad, because she's had it pretty bad a lot of times. So this is one, look, the first couple segments on the docket here are me giving myself a little pat on the back, because if I don't, who will? But
that's what you have me here for, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I got you here. I pulled in everybody. I really set the show up. I really oriented the show in that direction. No, look, this is why we gave J.D. Vance no credit for his bullshit speech in Germany. I don't care what you have to say about free speech if you're not calling this out. This happened in Germany days after he gave that speech. Just the most ridiculous crackdown on what is such a benign event. You can watch the live streams happening right now. So once this stream is over, you guys could go check that out. It's on all day. I'm sure it'll be available on replay. I caught some clips of it. I wasn't able to pull clips because it's live as it's happening. It's just a gathering of people doing readings, making speeches. I mean, this would be like a guest speaker showing up to like a Barnes & Noble in a big city where they had a couple hundred chairs in the room and they bring somebody up to give a talk and they open it up to the audience. The idea that that's crawling with cops and that there's riot police outside and that they forced them to a venue change at the last minute, it's just absurd. It's just absolutely absurd. And any politician, any commentator, anybody who wants any credibility about freedom of speech, who does not bring this up, is a joke. And J.D. Vance is an absolute joke. And that's why I said that. What did you think? First of all, what do you think of this? And then what did you think of the Vance speech?
Well, I'm glad you brought me on to pat yourself on the back, too, as well. You know who does that, too, as well? Donald Trump. Like, even every single statement, I'm like, dude, don't sprain your arm trying to pat yourself there on the back, The whole
was my Elon
situation.
If we ever take over the government, you're going to be my Doge guy.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd like to investigate myself first because, that Elon Musk should do that. I think he's received something like $16 billion in subsidies over the last decade. So if you want to talk about, but once again, that's what it's designed to make us look like these are the outsiders. And, I would also say that everything is going as planned because it is no coincidence that J.D. Vance has given that speech in Germany, right? You sent me some of the information for the show today so I can get prepared. So I type in Germany in Twitter just to see it says trending before I can even put on pro-Palestinian crackdown in Germany. When you get on there, it's all, rusty rockets, and I don't know. I didn't watch the beginning of Russell Brand's show, so I don't know if he opened it up with a prayer with Jordan Peterson talking about our Christian Judaic values. I don't know. But he immediately went to the whole, oh, my God, the freedom of speech, where this side is trying to make the other side look like a Nazi, right? Like you can't, just highlighting everything J.D. Vance is doing. Then you have this situation, right? And this is the big question over here. Like, what did we learn from this situation, right? We understand that, like I said in the beginning of the show, the way the ruling class stays in charge, they keep the parties divided. So now you have the pro-Palestinians that are getting censored, all in all, and getting pushed back, whatnot. So now you have two sides that it's just been uber inflamed, where they have their rights taken away from us. But at the end of the day, we also have to understand that this situation tells you who the boss is, Keaton. I mean, there's been an argument between the truthers and the truther community about who's really pulling the strings. And there's also been kind of like be careful when you kind of where you walk when you say that, Israel or the Zionists are at the top of the food chain. Be careful, because that could be anti-Semitic as well in that conversation. Right. But when you look and you see these situations, you see who's calling the shots. Quick funny story. When we were in Colombia, me and Fiorella doing the observation of the Colombian election, part of our delegation, there was a guy from Germany who lived there. And we were like, getting together and coming together on so many issues when we were talking about Latin America. But as soon as we brought up Israel, it was kind of like this, oh, no, don't touch that kind of situation.
Right.
When you blame a society as a country responsible for the Holocaust and Hitler, that society becomes uber sensitive about stopping anything that is going to aid against what you were initially blamed for.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I think there is a lot of people in German society that will go along with this because they want to wash away that on their hands because they were responsible for that. So, I mean, the social engineers, who we often don't talk about, those are the ones who work for the ruling class and kind of thrust these situations into our society to keep our divided. They understand exactly what's going on. They understand their audience, and they are becoming very, very, very successful at keeping us divided. What I think we should be asking, Keaton, though, is them coming out of this situation. I often think about the UCLA protest, the encampments over there. Well, when you talk to a lot of the pro-Palestinian people, they were organized and they were told not to talk to the other side, just to shut it down. So no matter what, there's no discourse getting across. I thought the tactics that they use are awful. And I'm wondering, these same people in Germany, how are they going to come out of this? Because if they want to do the thing about coming together that we had talked about in the beginning of the show, they have to find a way to reach out to people who think differently than them, people who think that, Israel is the victim here, and say, hey, listen, you might think that way, I might think this way, but our speech is our speech. We have to find a way to come together to back each other up. But we don't see that. We don't see that in Germany. We sure as hell don't see it here in the United States. You know what I'm saying? They try to make this whole Israel situation. When I think about Rescue the Republic, I think of it as a way of making Israel, right, the Zionist, a fourth rail. And that's why it was so off, for me, it was off limits. Like, no way. You cannot justify this one way or the other. But we do have people justifying it. We do have people justifying it in Germany as far as Israel's actions, the Zionist actions. And they're calling the shots everywhere, it seems.
Sure. I mean, well, I think that's part of the point of events like this. I mean, like I said, if you look at this event, if you look at the video of this event, which is live right now as we speak, I mean, it seems like a forum for that kind of discussion. It's a very benign event. It's not an outdoor event where people are even rabble-rousing, and they should have the right to do that. It's not even that. I mean, it's a closed-door event. It's basically, it has the tone and tenor of a book club, for Christ's sake. So the idea that you would send police into the room prevents that conversation from taking place. Now, as far as the UCLA encampments, when you got psychos showing up, like these Zionist counter-protesters launching fireworks into your encampments, yeah, that's going to create a militant atmosphere. And, look, I do think that we just have to be extremely hard line on this. And, I don't show people grace on this issue, at all. Like, to me, this is an issue of, are you pro-humanity or not? I mean, to me, if you're not appalled by the events of the last 15 months, then you are unreachable. And I do believe that, there has to be a hard line on that issue. Now, look, do you show grace to people whose minds you change? Yeah, look, Russell had a Facebook friend of his, just a committed, staunch Zionist. He recommended the Tantura film to her about the Israeli settlers confessing to these horrible murders, and it changed her mind. So yeah, I mean, look, you always leave that door open to an extent. If you're at an encampment and you got these Zionist counter-protesters coming and violently attacking you, as was the case at UCLA, yeah, I don't blame those organizers for saying we have to sort of close ranks.
Yeah, but they were refusing to talk to people like me and Matt. Like, we had to find a way to get in. And if you ask those same people...
they didn't talk to you?
I mean, they eventually did. They warmed up. It took some time. They were hesitant to. And once again, the protesters weren't allowed to talk. It was only the organizers. The organizers encouraged them not to talk to anybody else, which I thought was a bad tactic. I thought they should have had talking points when questioned about things. And if you would have asked half those people that were encamped there in UCLA how they felt about January 6th, it would have been the same talking like, oh, those are criminals. They tried to overturn the government. These
Right.
are the problems I'm saying we're facing. I mean, because at the end of the day, if I had a microphone in front of JD Vance, I'd question him about this. I was like, well, you're talking about all this free speech. What about their free speech? Which reminded me, I think I know you guys like to use sound bites. I think you should get that sound bite. I'm going to give you this. This is a little gift to Cherry here.
All right.
You should get that sound bite from Friday when he says, oh, that was different. Remember, like when he was talking like, you didn't stand up for me when Debo tried to beat me up. What about the time you tried to choke me in Smoke Backyard?
Yeah.
He possibly goes, oh, that was different. Like you should get that soundbite because that's the answer you'll get from a JD Vance supporter or a populist right supporter. Look, I texted Laura Loomer, right? My friend Laura Loomer, when she made that comment, when I was working on Jimmy's show and she made that comment, I'm like, you're supposed to be a free speech absolutist. I mean, what you're saying over here, you're talking about censorship. No, it's different. This is terrorist sympathizers.
Right,
and that's what they'll say about those people in the room, Keaton. Oh, they're Hamas sympathizers.
Of course.
That's why we have to have their presence in the room because it goes across, it crosses the red line.
Right. Right. Now, in Germany, where there's not the same sort of codified First Amendment that we have here, it's easier for them to make that case. But we know they can make that case here. That's what the Patriot Act is all about. And that's why, coming from the mouth of a guy like J.D. Vance, it is especially troubling to see that kind of blind spot, quote unquote. And, what I said in the last show is that when it comes to free speech, there are no blind spots. But you are, by definition, either for free speech for everybody, or you shouldn't bother being for free speech at all. Why go pick a free speech battle if you're not going to defend it for everybody? Yep. And, I want
to say something about that real quick, just really briefly, and I don't mean to cut you off, but the first hearing I watched when it came to summoning the tech overlords to D.C., I realized really quickly, Keaton, that the right didn't believe in free speech either. They just had different demons and different people they wanted to censor. And people have to accept that the right is not for free speech either. They just have their own separate demons. Sorry to interrupt, brother.
No, that's it. That puts a button on that segment. I think that's good. Think that came out good. Nailed it. Put it in the can. Michael Castillo over on YouTube. Thanks for the $5. It says, Keaton and Pasta, I'm staying in the Bronx. What eateries do you recommend? Do you know if the Captain is still open? That's in Morris Park. That was a famous place, wasn't it? The Captain. We went when Jimmy came to town and we did the fundraiser for Jose. We ate at this place on Arthur Avenue called Roberto's, which was really good. So I could recommend that. But I haven't been to the Bronx in years and years and years.
I don't know anything in the Bronx. All I know, if I come to New York, I'm coming to have that chicken dish with the Sicilian olives and the raisins that you.
Oh yeah, mine.
That's what I'm eating.
Yeah, you come up to Albany, I'll make you some Sicilian chicken with the olives and the raisins. Yeah.
Take the train from the Bronx. What do you?
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. The best New York food is up here in Albany. If you go to Arthur Avenue, that's a Little Italy in the Bronx. Like I said, we ate at Roberto's. That was really good. There's also this really fun place that's kind of like just like an indoor market with all different kind of quick street food, pizza, subs, cold cuts and stuff. And they have this whole hut where they got guys rolling cigars. That's fun. That's right near Roberto's. So look that up, Michael. I think you'll like that. Yo, Pasta, I enjoyed your coverage of Haiti and the wildfires in Lahaina. I also watched you when you filled in for Kim Iverson. Cool. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Bejan Edema, thanks for the donation. I live next to the Space Needle, spitting distance from the India consulate. Is Russell going to be there Thursday at 4 p.m.? Okay, so that hit a snag. They're not actually doing it then. They are postponing that protest, Bejan. So thanks for mentioning that. They're going to announce that at some point. I don't know why they didn't yet, because I hope people don't show up expecting a protest crowd. But there's no protest for Shama on Thursday. They do have a future date in mind, and they are going to be talking about that at the conference as well. Natalie Williams, thanks for the $5. Check out Estonia for a glimpse of what Bilderberg Tech Bros want to do to the rest of us. Thank you, Natalie. All right, we'll take some Rumble rants over here. Folks, we got a big crowd in here, 1,700 strong in the YouTube chat, 837 over on Rumble. Smash those like buttons, those subscribe buttons, and those follow buttons, please. Noah Goop, you guys see the Jewish guy shot 2 Israelis in Miami thinking they were Palestinian. Yeah, one of the Israelis assumed it was an Arab who shot him and posted death to Arabs. Yeah, Hannibal directive on U.S. soil. Yeah, yep. What a story that was. I did see that. Thank Christ you finally got rid of Doppler. Says Killer Hitting. Mother Trucker was a fucking anchor around your balls. Sorry about the Mother Trucker thing. Thank you, Killer Hitting. He's joking. Hillary Hitton is one of our jokesters here. I support workers strike back. However, I do fear that even if workers could get better rights, the jobs will all be gone to AI or robots. Very little hope ahead. Legitimate concern. Thank you very much. Let's see here. What do we got here? Abiding Bibi's public statement. Saudi has a lot of land. They should take Palestinians. Seem frustrated and erratic. Not winning. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Let's move on to segment number 2. All right, folks. So here we go. This is a segment. Once again, I wish I wasn't right about this, but it seems that I am. So Breakthrough News posts just about 11 days ago here, February 7th, the first flight of undocumented migrants arrives at a U.S. maximum security prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The mainstream media has yet to press the Trump administration on the basic questions. Who are these detainees really? Do they have criminal convictions? Will they have access to asylum proceedings? The U.S. has long used the Guantanamo base, itself a stolen zone of Cuban territory, for lawless and indefinite detention, but courts have said those in U.S. jurisdiction there have constitutional protections. So let's take a look at this video here of the migrants arriving at Guantanamo Bay. One guy had a mask. I didn't know the Democratic Socialists of America worked at Guantanamo Bay. All right. Well, hey, good breakthrough news would be pleased to know that at least one established outlet here has bothered commenting on this and now has published a report. U.S. sending nonviolent low-risk migrants, quote-unquote low-risk migrants, to Guantanamo despite vow to detain the worst there. So remember when Donald Trump ordered the construction of a 30,000-bed migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay, which is basically an expansion of an already existing migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay, in addition to the maximum security prison there that is reserved for terror suspects, or so we thought. We're going to get more into that. He said, no, this is only going to be for the worst of the worst. We're only sending the violent criminals to Guantanamo. Well, this reporting seems to contradict that. While the Trump administration has highlighted the transfers of dangerous criminals and suspected gang members to Guantanamo Bay, it is also sending nonviolent, low-risk migrant detainees who lack serious criminal records or any at all, according to 2 U.S. officials and internal government documents. When he ordered officials to convert facilities inside the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, into large-scale immigration detention site late last month, President Trump said it would house the worst migrants and provide additional detention space for high-priority criminal aliens. Administration officials have since touted military flights to Guantanamo that they said have transported migrants in the U.S. illegally who have also committed violent crimes like murder and assault, we'll say, for YouTube, as well as alleged members of Tren de Aragua, the infamous gang that originated in Venezuelan prisons. Do I have that name right? Pasta, you would know.
I wouldn't know. I'm the wrong one to ask. Remember, I couldn't even say Saboteur, but I think you did it well.
All right. Well, it's a good answer that you wouldn't know. I mean, that's the thing you wouldn't admit even if you did know. You're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Internal documents and interviews with U.S. officials indicate the administration has sent migrant criminals and alleged gang members to Guantanamo, detaining them in the post-9/11 maximum security prison that also houses in a separate section more than a dozen terrorism suspects. So what this indicates, based on that reporting, is that they are putting some in the maximum security jail, not just this separate migrant facility. But in addition to sending those with criminal records or suspected or known gang ties, classified as high-risk detainees, U.S. officials have also transported migrants deemed to be low risk to Guantanamo, according to the government documents obtained by CBS News. More low-risk migrants are expected to be transported on Wednesday alongside high-risk detainees, the documents show. Federal immigration authorities define low-risk detainees as migrants who face deportation because they are in the U.S. illegally, but who have not been arrested or convicted of violent offenses or other serious crimes, government guidelines show. U.S. officials say they could include migrants who lack any criminal record but have been ordered deported because of civil immigration violations, like entering the country without proper documents, i.e., just about everyone and anyone. While the high-risk migrants have been detained in cells at Guantanamo's maximum security prison, the low-risk detainees have been placed in a barrack-like facility known as the Migrant Operations Center that includes rooms with restrooms. Oh, wow, luxury. According to the documents and one of the U.S. officials who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the press. The State Department has traditionally used the Migrant Operations Center to house asylum seekers intercepted at sea by the U.S. Coast Guard while they wait to be resettled in third countries. So, yes, we covered this a few weeks ago. They would previously use this migrant facility to house migrants who the Coast Guard intercepted if they were coming over on boats, mostly from Cuba and Haiti, actually. And they would put them in these detention centers at Gitmo until they could either relocate them back to the country they were from, which in many cases is a no-go, especially Cuba. If you leave, you're not really allowed to go back on good terms. Or if they could find another country to take you. If either of those two things happen, you can be there as long as we want to keep you there. The whole point of Guantanamo Bay is it's this sort of legal black hole where they don't have to charge you with anything. They can keep you there as long as they want. And now, as we can see, they are putting non-violent offenders here, low-risk immigrants, quote-unquote. In a statement Wednesday, a Department of Homeland Security spokesperson confirmed CBS News' reporting, including the separate housing arrangements. Quote, in addition to holding violent gang members and other high-threat illegal aliens, Guantanamo Bay is also holding other illegal aliens with final deportation orders. Every single alien at Guantanamo Bay has a final deportation order, the spokesperson said. Quote, all of these individuals committed a crime by entering the United States illegally. Well, there you go. We always knew they were going to fall back on that. This was never going to be about violent criminals who posed a threat to public safety or drug runners or traffickers. This was always going to broaden out to everybody. The main question here, as it pertains to who they're sending to Guantanamo Bay, is where are they from? Are they from problematic countries that won't accept them back? That's what this exists for. We have more. While we're paused, do you have anything to say so far?
No, I mean, if you have more, keep going. I just, my mind is spinning, right now. Because I just recently I did see a movie about what goes on at Guantanamo Bay and some of the people they took there and the torture tactics they used. And also just thinking about the mindset. Really, I like the way you presented the story, because you did present the story about the quagmire, air quotes, that the United States might have intercepting some of these people at sea. Where do you take them? They can't go back to their country, so let's just put them there. So maybe they had those facilities where they adopted them. Maybe they weren't as treacherous as some of the other people that were taken after 9/11 and that side of the base. And I was also thinking to myself, man, why doesn't Cuba just say enough is enough and close that base? But the United States will open up another base somewhere else.
Right.
It doesn't make a difference.
Well,
this is not about location. It's about culture,
Yeah, so the Supreme Court actually ruled, because I read a report about this, the Supreme Court actually ruled in the 90s that the United States could deny certain asylum-seeking rights to people who are intercepted at sea. Apparently, if you make it to U.S. soil, there's a certain process that the government has to go through to either grant you asylum, put you in a limbo period, or send you back. They intercept you at sea. It's apparently fair game. That's apparently the Wild West. That's why the Coast Guard, when they intercept people at sea, they would put them here. But it's unprecedented. They did not use it for this purpose ever before, where migrants who are living here get sent to Guantanamo. That has not happened before until now.
And Guantanamo was always Keaton, though, but it wasn't about illegal immigrants. It was about enemy combatants, right? Remember that, the whole W situation when they changed it to enemy combatants? When Dick Cheney hit that snag, they were saying all these human rights lawyers are coming out and saying you can't treat these people this way. I'm like, we'll just classify them as enemy combatants, which pretty much left it up to whatever the State Department and the military apparatus, whatever, how they wanted to treat these people. And yet they're continuing to treat these people the same way. It's just, it's
absolutely. Well, that's the maximum security prison that you're talking about, which apparently is housing some of the violent illegal immigrants now. They had this other facility too. It's a lesser known, but they actually did have this too. It was used in very rare cases where the Coast Guard would intercept people at sea. But now they're just taking people out of the country and putting them there. They promised to only do this to violent criminals. And we, of course, I mean, you could pretty easily see that that was bullshit all along. At least I did. In 2 weeks, officials have made some progress in operationalizing Mr. Trump's instructions to establish the facilities needed to detain as many as 30,000 unauthorized migrants at the base in Guantanamo, a 45-square-mile stretch of Cuban land that the U.S. has leased for over a century. Over the past week, U.S. service members at the base have been erecting tents to house migrant detainees beyond the Prison and Migrant Operations Center, both of which have limited capacities. The Migrant Operations Center is hardly ever used. It's horribly run down. That's why they want to build more stuff there to house more people. Officials have also been meeting the administration's goal of transporting groups of detainees to the base daily, sending 8 military flights over the last 9 days. The flights, however, have only carried up to 15 detainees each due to limits on how many can be transported at one time when they reach the base. Well, that seems awful inefficient. Maybe Doge can get on that. 15 at a time seems like a waste of gas to me. So here puts this into a little clearer focus. Here you can get a little clearer idea of what's going on and why. There are now more than 150 migrant detainees held at the U.S. Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay. CBS News' Camillo reports. All of those currently detained at the base are men from Venezuela. There you go. Here we go.
Talk to us about what Guantanamo has become.
Sure.
And what is the difference in the treatment of these undocumented migrants and those who were there longstanding?
Critical questions, Major. President Trump instructed officials to essentially dramatically expand migrant holding capacity at the U.S. naval base in Guantanamo Bay. Historically, under Republican and Democratic presidents alike, the U.S. has detained some migrants there, but these have been asylum seekers intercepted at sea, like Haitian and Cuban refugees who are undergoing screenings by U.S. asylum officers to be resettled in third countries like Australia or Canada, not people arrested in the interior of the country and then sent to Cuba. Now, that is what is happening as we speak. The U.S. has sent about a dozen military flights to Guantanamo Bay with about 150 migrant detainees. And despite what the president has said and what officials like Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, have said, the people being sent there are not only criminals and alleged gang members, but they also include migrants who are in the country illegally, but who lack any serious criminal record or any at all. And that undermines the administration's messaging that this base would only house the worst of the worst. That's right, Major. And so all these men, we are told, are from Venezuela, and they are going to be detained there until they can be deported to Venezuela. And that is the key question, because, as you know, the government in Venezuela has rejected U.S. deportation flights for years, including under the Biden administration. So these folks could be detained there indefinitely.
And there's the rub. And this is what I told you would happen. They're going to build up these facilities at Guantanamo so they can indefinitely detain migrants from problem nations like Venezuela who won't take them back. That is what this is going to be used for. Not the worst of the worst violent criminals. That was always a load of total bullshit. And now we're seeing that in action, where you have low-risk immigrants who are not a violent threat to anybody, who they said weren't going to be among the first round of deportations, right? First, they said we're coming just for the criminals first, right? Now, not only are they deporting them, they're sending them to Guantanamo Bay, where they will remain indefinitely until they can find some place that will take them. And if Venezuela refuses to take them and we refuse to take them, well, you do the math. That does not look good. As for the facility itself, this was the report I was referring to: detention of refugees at Guantanamo Bay, offshoring human rights. These are just some brief bullet points from the section on human rights violations at the migrant center. So this is not the maximum facility prison for terror suspects. This is the separate migrant facility with human rights violations of its own. Detention conditions, at the GMOC are inhumane. When the U.S. government engages in incarceration, it must at minimum provide humane conditions of confinement and take reasonable measures to guarantee the safety of the inmates. Conditions at the GMOC are inhumane: mold, sewage, lack of potable water, deprive refugees of their basic rights to sanitation and hygiene. This is a very recent report, by the way, from September of last year. The GMOC facility is too dilapidated to house people, particularly for prolonged periods, and needs to be completely torn down, according to a person who worked there. Well, Trump is building up a beautiful new facility for them, apparently. The GMOC does not meet minimum U.S. safety standards for detention facilities. The U.S. government does not provide adequate medical care to refugees at the GMOC. The U.S. government denies GMOC detainees the right to speak up about inhumane conditions, file grievances, and access courts. Of course, that's why you're at Guantanamo. You don't get to see a judge unless and until we want you to. The U.S. government imprisons children at the GMOC in ways that are contrary to U.S. laws. The U.S. government outsources offshore detention of refugees to IOM and private prison contractors at GMOC, who put children and families at risk and repeatedly violate their rights. So that is just a sampling of the list of violations that occur here. But as you can see, this is now underway. And as I said, they're going to use this as a facility to house the immigrants that they can't relocate from problem countries. They can keep them there as long as they want. There's no legal recourse. That's why they're doing it on Guantanamo Bay. The fact that this was not a major red flag to more people as soon as it was announced they were doing this, and by doing this, I mean building the facility, is mind-boggling.
Yeah. It reminds me, man, I mean, my head's just spinning right now because there's so much. Like the first story we talked about in Germany, right? We were talking about how this pro-Palestinian or just anti-ethnic cleansing, I like to call them, rally was taking place with this guest speaker, and the fascist techniques we were talking about, or the authoritarian techniques, if you want to keep it there, the censorship involved, the quelling of speech, and but also the other side of that coin. When I typed in Germany, they were complaining about the fact that these people were marching in the street about open borders, once again demonizing and looking at the immigrant as the problem. I've heard you guys say many times on this show is that a lot of these people on the populist right thinks that if this is the biggest problem, that if we fix this problem, so many things will fall into play. But I think that mentality, and that mentality is out there, Keaton, is why this is justified. These encampments are justified. Shouldn't have broke the law. And remember, it, like you said, it kind of fell back on the fact that their main crime was coming into this country illegally. Therefore, they can do what they want to do to them. And it does remind me, remember the story when they were talking about when they were going to bring some of the prisoners from Guantanamo Bay to the United States prisoners, and people flipped the lid. Oh my God, you can't do that. You can't bring it's this like some level of criminality that these people in Guantanamo Bay. I don't know if people really know what's going on, the type of criminals and some of the people who are in American prisons. I think they would laugh at some of those people coming over at Guantanamo Bay. They wouldn't be a threat, and they're not like MI6 where they're going to escape. But this is some serious human rights that are being broken over there. And I think it's disgusting. But we have to also kind of talk about why there is so much mass migration. I don't think people even understand which Venezuelan criminal they're talking about, air quotes, criminal. And Anya Parampel had talked about this for quite some time.
Sure.
When you look about the situation, I think these situations are caused, especially by the United States foreign policy apparatus, where a lot of these Venezuelan criminals, if people don't remember correctly, the first Trump administration, Carlos Vecchia, who was the adversary to the Chavistas in Venezuela, had gone to Donald Trump and say, hey, listen, we want to get some of these people. They're anti-Venezuelan government. Some of them don't even live in Venezuela. They've escaped to other countries because for many years, the CIA would fund a lot of these gangs to go in there and cause problems to try to destabilize these countries and get rid of the Chavistas and the other neighboring countries. It's the same tactics they've been doing for so long. Well, these criminals that were outside the Venezuelan government, and they weren't even living in Venezuela, Donald Trump was presented, hey, can you allow these people and give them work visas to get here? Donald Trump said no, but what at least I'll do is I'll recognize Juan Guaido. And he brought Juan Guaido to Congress, stood him up, everybody applauded. He still wouldn't allow those Venezuelans to come here. Biden gets in. I'll do you one better. Once again, the continuation, the handing of the baton. I'll grant you work visas for these people to come in here to Venezuela. Now, what people do we get were allowed to come in here, right? The Venezuelans who were kind of in gangs, funded to be an oppositional figure against the Maduro, the Chavista government, but yet they come over here, they commit crime, or what happens, these gangs, they have the stigma of these are everyday, average, normal Venezuelans when they're not. You know what I'm saying? They were actually opposition to the government. So to try to send them back, Keaton, what are you going to do? This is an anti-Chavista Venezuela who was funded by the CIA and other NGOs to fight against, try to overthrow our government, and now you want us to take them back? You know what I'm saying? I mean, people have to understand the crux of what's going on and how the United States government exacerbates the migration to the United States in the first place. Because the best way for these multinational corporations that really run our government to get their resources over there in Latin America as cheap as can be is to keep those governments and those countries destabilized as possible, just like they do in the Congo, where all the cobalt is, right? Keep that country destabilized as possible. Now you can extract that cobalt for pennies on the dollar. Keep those people in Haiti living under the threat of gangs and whatnot in a destabilized country, because now we can take that iridium out of that country for pennies on the dollar. So when we look at this situation, and we're kind of talking about it on surface level, we must never forget our role that our government plays in exacerbating the whole migrant situation as is. And then, you know, the beautiful show you guys did with the HB visas, I think that was one of my favorite dissident shows when you were doing your Donald Trump. I love the visas. The visas are great. They're taking advantage of the cheap labor when they get here because they want them here in the first place, yet they're lying through their teeth and telling you that they're the problem. We have to shut it down. It is a quagmire of a problem, but we have to look at the roots if we're going to really solve this. But at the end of the day, Guantanamo Bay, yeah, that's as inhumane as shit. It's awful what they do over there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny you mentioned, if a Venezuelan dissident leaves and then there's a problem of locating them back. This migrant facility in the report that we just referenced there, one of the examples they gave was of this Cuban family. They were Cuban journalists who were dissenting against the Castro government, and they were actually working with the United States, going back and forth from Cuba to Florida. I guess they'd sneak back into Cuba. And then when Cuba passed a law that would have landed them in a lot of legal hot water, they packed up their family and they left for the U.S., thinking they'd be let in because they were already kind of collaborating with the government. No, they intercepted them at sea, the Coast Guard. They took them to Guantanamo Bay, and they had to stay there for a few months before I guess they were finally able to negotiate entry into the United States. But they still had to stay there for quite some time. And now you have such festering of ill will against immigrants, just everyday people, that you could just do anything to them. And it seems like right now the public just finds it to be open season on these people. And it's going to remain that way until more stories like this come out. And we have a story coming up next that kind of is a microcosm of that.
You'll hear a lot of truthers talk about Operation Phoenix, right? That's when I think the social engineers coming out of this one company called Tavistock that work for a lot of the the oligarchs on, social engineering, when they had to change it from, okay, we've learned how to control the individual, right? MK Ultra, all these things. Well, how do we control societies? How do we inflame societies? And taking a lot of people from northern Vietnam, placing them in southern Vietnam, you'll always see those conversations come into play, right? Diane Sayre, who's done some great work with Jose Vega in New York, talking to some of these migrants. Well, first of all, these migrants, when they're let in, they sign what do you call them? NDAs, right? That you can't talk about. They can't talk about what's going on when they are let in. But they're jamming like 8, 9, 10 of these people in one hotel room. And when they were talked to about, well, why'd you come? Well, we were told to come. We were provided means to come. They're kind of focusing on that. Operation Phoenix, the UN making a lot of money, sending these people around, exacerbating the situation, because those hotel rooms in New York, they're charging top dollar for each night for those people to stay there, taxing the state or taxing the government and getting their money back. But at the end of the day, I always say, well, wait a second. What was in northern Vietnam that we needed more than anything? It always kind of digresses back to resource extraction. And this is something we have to look at when it comes to Latin America. There's a lot of things. Remember, we'll coup who we want.
Right. Well, of course,
he was saying that about Bolivia, because Bolivia also sits on the lithium triangle, and all these minerals, there's so many in them in Latin America that we're going to constantly see this over and over and over again. And then the mainstream media and the government will only talk about the surface level problems like we have right here. Where do we put them now that we have this problem in hand? Well, the way you stop the problem is you stop causing the problem, right? Get out of these countries right now. Give them their national sovereignty. Let them keep their resources, and we won't have so much migration to the United States in the first place. And I don't know why people just can't figure that out, because every single time I talk to somebody on the populist right, Keaton, yeah, that's a problem, but we should close the border first because that's how you solve the problem. No, how about you stop exacerbating the problem of being in these people's countries, stealing their resources, and then getting mad when they're coming here looking for some trickle down? We need to solve the problem from where it exists. Our foreign policy.
Sure. And that's why it is ultimately like to take that hard a line on immigration while having no critique of the foreign policy just makes you an imperialist at the end of the day, because that's what you want to do. You want to plunder these countries and destabilize these countries, and you want to basically make these countries plantations for American corporations, which is what Cuba was pre-Castro.
Yep.
And then close the door on people when they try to leave, because the quality of life degrades because we just exploit the resources and we exploit the labor. So at that point, you're just an imperialist who wants the American boot on the neck of all of these people south of the border from Mexico all the way on down. Yep. You should expect some resistance to that from the people who are victimized by that. And it's now a well-established fact. Now, at this point, really, the West has no excuse, whether it's here in our hemisphere, where the migration flow is south to north, or in Europe, where the migration flow is east to west. When we bomb these Middle Eastern countries, then they get Arab migrants, and then they complain about that. So, yeah, obviously, the solution is all in the foreign policy. And if you have no critique of that, as so many of these people don't, then really you're just advocating for the domination of, the global South and the Middle East and really most of the world. It is just a Western chauvinist imperialist point of view.
Well, the East to West too, and you're right, and that's what they're experiencing right now. But even Gaddafi said this. He said, listen, you get rid of me, man, forget about it. There's going to be a migration going across the water north to Europe like you've never seen before. You know what I'm saying? People have told us about this, and no matter what, and it is interesting because I don't know if I can approach the conversation. Well, you're just an imperialist, right? Like I'm trying to figure out how do I talk to my friends out here that, think that migration is one of the biggest problems in the world. I constantly talk about it. We also didn't mention the fact that, and I've been to 7 Latin American countries over the last 3 years, right? So I've spent some time down there. Our dollar in every single country I went to can be used, right? So we also talking about conquering these countries, throwing these crazy IMF loans, which pretty much essentially make all the citizens thrusted into an austerity measures, right? Where they're going to have to pay back these ridiculous loans. And if they don't pay them back, we seize their resources even more. You know what I'm saying? So that is also relevant to what's going on. So no matter what people are talking about, Operation Phoenix, the migration, the fires thrown on, it's always about still resource extraction and throwing our monetary system, keeping our monetary system relevant by forcing on these other countries and crazy IMF austerity loans. I mean, what's that song by Led Zeppelin? The song remains the same, baby. It's still playing.
Indeed. All right, we're going to go right into this next story, and I'm going to clip this separately. So we've been talking about the fact that now Guantanamo Bay is being used to house not just high-risk, violent criminal aliens, but low-risk immigrants as well. So here's a heartwarming story that you'll all enjoy. A woman driving 25 mile an hour in a 40 mile an hour zone in Tucson was pulled over by Arizona state troopers. Border Patrol arrived, detained her and her 2 children, threatened to send them to Guantanamo, and deported them to a country that they're not even from. Venezuelan migrant mother and 2 children deported to Mexico just hours after Tucson traffic stop. After Arizona state troopers pulled her over in Tucson for driving under the speed limit, Yesenia begged to see her babies. The fear the migrant mother of 4 lived with before and after fleeing the civil unraveling in her home country of Venezuela didn't prepare her for the pain of being separated from her children in the United States. The problem started that night, February 11th, at a Quick Trip gas station where Yesenia was selling empanadas. She told Arizona Luminaria on February 15th that a woman in the parking lot started verbally attacking her, threatening to call the police. She says minutes later, the police showed up. She packed her things and her children into her SUV, already nearly full with the supplies she used to clean houses, and started driving away. So here you have a housekeeper selling empanadas outside a gas station. You have some bootlicking Karen, probably some leather-skinned bitch with a black tank top and purple lipstick. You know the look I'm talking about. Pasta women, they look like they've just a handbag that's been run through the washing machine 5 times. They put some bright lipstick on, some fake eyelashes, and they think they look good. That's my image. That's the image in my mind of who would call the cops on a woman with her children selling empanadas in a gas station parking lot. You don't have to co-sign that. I understand that might be a little controversial. Moments later, Arizona Department of Public Safety troopers pulled her over. They asked if I was a member of the Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang, Yesenia says of Border Patrol agents interrogating her and her children the night they were in custody. She says she told them repeatedly that she was scared to be sent back to Venezuela. She begged them not to deport her to Mexico, where she had been targeted by a cartel. I lived through a kidnapping. I was scared to return to Mexico, she says. She continued pleas for her other 2 children, still in Tucson. So she had 4 kids in total. She says that agents just kept saying, "That's not my problem." At the Tucson Sector Border Patrol Station, agents questioned both her and her children. They asked my 6-year-old daughter if her dad was a gang member, if he had a gun, she says. Her daughter was sobbing. Imagine scaring a 6-year-old like that, Yesenia's sister-in-law says. She asked not to be named for fear of repercussions from immigration or law enforcement officials. Yesenia also says agents threatened to send her to Guantanamo and that her kids could be put up for adoption. My son, 9 years old, was crying. He's really sensitive. He kept trying to stop the agents from talking to his mom and sister like that, but they yelled at him to be quiet, Yesenia said. She says her son was trembling and crying. He was screaming, she says. Please don't separate me from my brothers. She says agents told the boy to be quiet, that he couldn't be screaming and crying. So this is what I mean when I say that now you have a climate of just resentment and rage to the point where, people are just seemingly okay with all of that. It's just open season on these people. Don't forget, the first ones out were supposed to be the violent criminals. But when you have the population in such a frenzy, now all it takes is a Karen to call the cops on a woman selling empanadas with her children in a gas station parking lot, and within hours, she's being threatened with deportation to Guantanamo Bay because she's from Venezuela. She's from the problem country that won't necessarily take her back, separated from her 2 kids who were not with her at the time. She had 2 kids with her at the time. What a horror story. What a nightmare. And, this is where you get to a place where you just have to say, at what point is too much, and we're not even close to that point. The public is behind this right now because the immigrant is the new welfare queen of the 80s. You know, the welfare queen in the 80s was the Reagan scapegoat. That's the immigrant now, and apparently there is no one blowing the whistle on stories like this. This was not supposed to happen, according to Donald Trump himself. They were supposed to go after the violent criminals first. And the element here, which is why I made a joke at her expense, people are inclined now to think of the kind of person you have to be to call the police on a woman selling empanadas with her children present outside a gas station.
Yeah.
Think of the lowlife you have to be to do that.
Well, that's expanded that person, right? Because I was thinking about that as you were saying that segment you were describing what it looks like and whatnot. And this is something that Donald Trump can really go scratch on. And that's not what it's supposed to be. When you have this type of rhetoric and this kind of language where you're kind of immigrant crime, right? Like, and first of all, if you look at the statistics out there, American citizens commit way more crime at a higher level than immigrants do per capita by far. The majority of immigrants that come into this country hide in the shadows, right? Like, I often face these things when I hear people repeating this stupid rhetoric that immigrants vote in elections. No, they don't. They very seldom do. I'm a guy who looks at elections closely. I look at the data, whatnot. Never do immigrants, illegal immigrants, or undocumented workers, whatever you want to call them, because no person really is illegal, they don't commit these crimes. They don't vote and participate.
They don't
But
even
now,
have
if you've had
cars.
this
The
rhetoric-
license plates on her cars were expired too.
Yeah.
You know,
Well-
like they're just off the right. They're not in the system. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Listen, this often reminds me of, we talked about Joe Rogan with his Elon love, whatnot. And this is why it was so disappointing seeing him interview Donald Trump. One of the things that I liked Joe Rogan about and I hated about Donald Trump was the family separation, taking away a child away from their mother, a young child. And, you know, he did this one whole skit. It was a clip that went viral. You shouldn't have broke the law. No, if you're going to be for this type of family separation and this type of behavior, you saw the police officers there in the report threatening to send her to Guantanamo Bay, having the kid cry. Is that really who we're supposed to be about as far as Americans? Our decent values, our family values, our Christian-like values, our fight against, you know, human indecency. Is that who we are when we can justify that type of behavior? And Joe Rogan talking about, you know, and it's the same, by the way, the same ICE agent. What's his name? Who's his name?
Oh, Homan. Yeah.
Homan, right? Who's kind of, you know, okay, not even okay. He's kind of actually justifying or trying to push this kind of family separation as a deterrent for people coming here. Yeah. I mean, that is disgusting that we do that. And Joe Rogan, for him to not ask Donald Trump about family separation, if that is okay, because that was a big thing he said. He goes, if you're for that, we're taking away a child from a mother when her instincts, her innate behaviors that get back that child, and you're okay with that type of torture and you're going to justify, then you're an asshole and we don't want you on our team.
Yeah, it's a Rogan said. Yes, years ago.
Where's that at now, Keaton? And why are people okay with this right now that you could do it? You shouldn't have broke the law. They came in here illegal, so we can do whatever we want to these people? This is disgusting behavior.
It absolutely is. But the reason why I think people are okay with it now is because they have been economically immiserated to the point where they feel like enough is enough. And that's the common thread. That's the common thread of this whole thing. That's the reason Doge is able to get away with what they're doing. That's the reason why they're able to send nonviolent immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. Again, do you understand what an offense to human rights that is, to send a nonviolent person to a black site to be held potentially for fucking life if they can't be relocated? Yeah. People are okay with that because they have the sense that enough is enough. Liberalism has failed. Constitutionalism has failed. And it has. And this is why, partly why, I mean, there are certain issues where we just disagree with Democrats, like, entirely. Like, they were pro-Iraq war, they were pro-Ukraine. So, like, certain points you push them because you're just dead set opposed to them. But the reason we were so adamant at first, I'm talking years and years ago, that the Democratic Party needed to change course is because we knew that the brand of liberal constitutionalism they were advocating was doomed to implode. And it was going to implode because people's conditions are deteriorating to the point where they will eventually, as FDR said, trade in their liberty for something to eat. And now the Karens in the gas station parking lot don't have to trade their liberty yet. They can trade the immigrants' liberty.
Yeah.
They'll call the cops on a mother selling empanadas in the parking lot with her 2 kids there, right? Knowing that you're going to terrorize those people. Like, terrorizing families is intrinsically bad. I'm not uncomfortable saying that. Like, that should not be a politically controversial statement. And according to this current administration, first priority was supposed to be violent threats, not mothers selling empanadas in parking lots. And it is depressing to see such consent for this.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, when you talk about the FDR, people will trade in a little bit of their freedom for a job or something to eat.
For something to eat, yeah.
That
was the quote, yeah.
We often talk about this too as well. Look, inside the other room over there, taking care of my mother, watching my mother right now, and I've experienced this with my father, I've experienced this with my stepfather, is a Haitian woman right now, and the Haitian community and how much they are entrenched. I went to high school in Boca, right? So I worked in the restaurant business. So my connection to the Haitian community, one of my best friends, his name is Philip Duval Saint. We call him the Haitian sensation. He's a lawyer. He's a good friend. And my connection to the Haitian community is very, very strong. And like I've talked about before, why I was so offended and so upset with Donald Trump implying that Haitian people are eating the people's pets that live there. Like, they were actually going into the house, right? Supposedly somebody picked up some stray ducks at a pond and whatnot, but he was implying that Haitian people were going into people's houses and stealing their pets and eating the pets there and stuff. Do you know what would happen if, in fact, all these people were deported right now and they were sent back? I was speaking to one of Zita, her name is, very close. She took care of my stepfather in his last days of his life. She goes, people are going to the store right now, a lot of immigrants, and they're scared. They have frowns on their faces. They're so upset that they might be deported and whatnot. And I said to myself, and I've said this before, the work that a lot of these immigrants do, I'm sorry, the people of this country won't pick up and do, Keaton. It's just, they won't go out there and pick fruit. If the Haitian community had to get sent back here in South Florida right now, the nursing homes, they would close, man. I mean, these people are taking care of our sick, our elderly. They do the jobs in the restaurants that people don't want to do. They're so part of our community and stuff like that. To demonize them now, it's just a sad, sad story. And I do take it personal. You know what I'm saying? It's connected to me in my life. And people have to understand what's going on. Because I think a lot of the problems, Keaton, is not so much that these immigrants are here doing the jobs, because it's not the jobs we would do anyways, is that there's no industry here. We don't make anything anymore. We don't fix anything anymore. Yeah. NAFTA was more of a knife in our back than the immigrants that come over here illegally to work any day of the week when you look at that. And if we don't get back to that simple tactic of understanding what's really hurting us, and it's our economy and our lack of industry, I mean, everybody's working for a friggin' app nowadays. That's the real problem.
Well, yeah, that obviously, yes. In terms of people not being willing to do jobs, I think that's true in some cases. I don't think that's true in all cases. I think in many cases, I don't think you can get Americans to do the jobs for the wages they pay migrants. Like, for example, when I was looking at, we were looking at home care for my mom. You can get home care, even if like Medicare won't cover it or whatever, you can get home care for pretty cheap. Now, it's still a strain if you have to keep someone in your house for 12 hours a day, right? Which we couldn't do. But like, you could get someone like a home care aide to come to your house for like $22 an hour. Now, the company is skimming off that, right? Because otherwise the company couldn't exist. So, they're not paying the home care aide $22 an hour. So you're paying people, how much are you paying people if you're only charging the customer $22 an hour? What are you paying, $12 an hour to care for a person, to sort pills, to help them bathe and this? Like that is a situation where, I think you could get Americans to do that for a much higher wage. And that's where the wage suppression argument, I do think, is valid. But valid or not valid, to me, to terrorize people in that way, there has to be a price to pay for that. Like, politically, there has to be a price to pay for that, especially when you're threatening them with indefinite detention at an offshore black site. I mean, how could that just go on unopposed? Yeah. You want to say she's got to be subject to some discipline because she came in illegally? Okay, fine. You're threatening to deport her to Guantanamo Bay. You're taking her away from the 2 other kids. You know, I mean, that's just, it's extreme to a point that can only be justified in a moment of mass hysteria, which is the moment we're in now.
It's interesting too. I don't want to get too far off with the whole work thing, and you're absolutely right. Just to digress to the point about what they're doing and stuff, but I think education has a lot to do with this. You know, George Carlin said there's a reason why education's broken and will never be fixed.
Right.
You know, in the restaurant business, I just got to say this, Keaton, there's just not a lot of people that, first of all, we don't even have home ec in school anymore, right? Like kids don't even learn how to cook.
Oh, I had that in school. That's how I learned to make my Sicilian chicken.
Well, you probably, we're a little bit older, so we had that and stuff. The kids nowadays, all they know how to do is order Uber Eats. You know, they don't know how to get in the kitchen and do that. So when you're talking about the restaurant business, when you have a Mexican immigrant there who's been cooking since he was 6, he's going to have that advantage over there, and that type of work that you need. I always talk about when it comes to the restaurant business, the Mexican community, they can adjust to almost any type of style cooking out there. There's something about when it comes to the Mexican immigrant inside the kitchen, they're just prepared for it at such a young age and ready to rock and roll. We need to get back to that type of education in our system nowadays. You know, there's a reason why we're not taught about anything financial, right? Like, you know, they leave that out, and they also just, you know, what are they teaching kids nowadays in school? They're certainly not teaching them to think for themselves. But I think this really goes to the core of who we are as a society and how we're raising our youth, unfortunately, in a very, I don't know, just a not a beneficial way to society. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a culmination of the two nowadays. It's not just the fact that it's just low wages. It's the way our kids are brought up nowadays, and they're really not taught to do anything. But, you know, go on TikTok or order from Uber Eats, unfortunately. I don't want to sell everybody short because that's not everybody, but that is a big part of our society.
I agree. Yes, I do. All right, let's take some super chats. Ohms, some to you. PSA, yesterday, February 17th, Roger Waters gave explosive 10-minute address to UNSC, shaming the military-industrial complex and saluting Trump. Mass media blackout today. See it, YouTube Africa News Network. I will look that up. Thank you. CEB Applejack, thanks for the $2. Salute to my brother, Pasta. Thank you, CEB. Black in the Empire is here. Black in the Empire, been a fan of your account for a long time. I don't know if you do interviews on shows, but we would love to have you on the show sometime. Black in the Empire. Yeah, so definitely get in touch with us if you're interested. DoDissidents@gmail.com. He says Pasta's my hero. So there you go.
Oh, that's stop. He comes out to all the his name is Daryl, by the way. I hope I can do that. He's just an awesome dude. I hung out with him at Rage Against the War Machine. I hung out with him, I think, at Defeat the Mandates, the first one in DC, where, you know, a different RFK that showed up in that hearing last week. Woo, right? The anti-vaccine RFK spoke for about 40 minutes. But Daryl is awesome. He's got a lot to say. He's just my man. He lives in New York, so, you know.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Wait, was Daryl, who was the guy who was hosting the show with you who called in? Was that guy named Daryl too?
Reggie Johnson is the one who works at WBAI.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was confused. Okay. So, for some reason, I thought Daryl was over there. Pasta, hey, Paley, great to see you. Hope all is well. I missed the Convo Couch. Convo Couch is still on. It's Truthwire now, but it's the same show. It was just
we're trying to get our monetization back, guys, and it's on Mondays and Fridays at 12:30. Sorry.
Yes, go subscribe to Truthwire. Put that in YouTube and Rumble, right? You guys are on Rumble too.
Yep, we're on Rumble.
Yeah. Abiding, my DD conspiracy was in full bloom. I've got a straight line from Elon's kid reading Green Eggs and Ham to Yov Gallant's February 13th tweet. Thank you, Abiding. Appreciate that. Let's see. I consider Tom a friend. I can't speak for him, but I'm biased either way. And to be fair, no one should ever trust my judgment of others, especially positive. Love you. Thank you, O George. Appreciate that.
Tom.
Abiding. Yeah, I don't know who Tom is. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you reference that. Maybe is there another chat up here and somewhere? Abiding 71. Don't let Russell fool you. He's mind mapping RFK Jr. ties to Illuminati headquarters under the Space Needle. There you go. Thank you, Abiding. Let's see. I work in a market, so I might be kind of canary in a coal mine. The trucks we've been getting have been the smallest I've ever seen. People are buying less food or making less. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Keaton, don't call it left. Pro-worker, anti-war, Medicare for all appeal to all sorts of people. Thank you, just in time. Killer Yenton asked Hedges what his favorite Rammstein song is and let him know that he left his blue chew at my place. Thank you, Killer Yenton. Appreciate that. Germany funded Ukrainian Nazis and Nazis. Fuck Germany, still the same Nazis they always were. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, let's keep going. 30 milligrams. RFK Jr. is talking about getting rid of mental health medication. He can take away antidepressants, but better not take away my Vyvanse. What is that? How do you say that? I don't know.
I think he's going to write Vyvanse.
Vyvanse? I think you're making a joke there. Sorry, I didn't get it. Dedamod, do you need tickets for Saturday and Sunday's Worker Strike Back events in Seattle? So go to workerstrikeback.org and they'll let you know everything there. I don't know if you need tickets. I don't think there's like a ticket. I don't think there's a charge to get in, but you might have to like pre-register or something like that so they know you're coming. They were expecting a pretty big crowd. Should be a good time for sure. Noah Goop, to Craig's point about the limited conversation within the left movements, I've found a big number of pro-Palestine protesters also support sending arms to Ukraine. Not even a real anti-war movement. Well, look, a lot of people are brought into this, like, because of the viscera of the genocide. You know, you've had a lot of liberals who are more or less mainstream Democrat types get so triggered, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, you know, I don't mean that in a mean way, get so rightly triggered by images of dead kids that they've mobilized on this issue, even though on most issues they're still pretty normy, right? But that's an entree into that block, right? So the idea is to bring them in and radicalize them across the board. I think that's a good organizing tactic. Yeah. China Chill Operation Phoenix was a counterinsurgency operation focused on terrorizing the local populace to rat out NVA fighters. My bad, it's the Phoenix program. They love their dumb names. Thank you, China Chill. Appreciate that very much. Okay, we are going to move on. All right, this is a quick one and a fun one here. So here's a little fun, a little mischief from the Palestine News Network. Somebody came up to Jerry Seinfeld and asked for a selfie. Little did Jerry know the camera was rolling, and he ambushed him a little bit here.
A selfie? Sure. Free Palestine! I don't care about Palestine. That's sad.
Nice guy. That's the nihilism of the show now with a genocidal twist.
Jerry, can I get a selfie? Sure. Free Palestine! I don't care about Palestine. That's sad.
That's how in a bubble this prick is, because that's his whole shtick, is he doesn't care about anything, and he clearly doesn't care about Palestine. He's obviously a fanatical, murderous Zionist. But he thinks that plays, you know. That's how in a bubble you are when you reach that level of fame. No, that played really well. I don't care about Palestine. Antonio David says Jerry's a sad sack of shit on the replies. I don't care about Palestine. Fuck you, Jerry Seinfeld. Absolutely. You had some chuds. I also do not care about Palestine, in quotes. Not even God cares about Palestine. Hey, Pasta, did you see our segment on Hasbara Hal, which is Fact Finder AI?
No, I did not.
Okay, so Fact Finder AI, we've called him Hasbara Hal because this was an AI bot developed by Israel to spread pro-Israel propaganda, but the AI gets confused and every once in a while spits out rebuttals to pro-Israel arguments. So Hasbara Hal, Fact Finder AI, friend of the show, Fact Finder AI, the dissident Israeli chatbot, says Jerry Seinfeld's statement regarding Palestine is not reflective of the complex situation in the region. It is crucial to understand the historical context and ongoing conflicts to form an informed opinion. Well, I mean, it's not exactly all that complicated, but for an AI robot, that's not too bad. Certainly not what he was trained to do.
Why do you think you did that, though, Keaton? You must have a theory on that, because if Hasbara Hal, right, maybe it was also programmed in a certain way. First of all, there's somebody writing the program for that, right? You know, If you look at, it's funny when you go on the Chat GPT AI, it's very Democratic establishment friendly, right? You know, and I'm sure other AI systems are going to think the other way, whatnot. They're going to be biased in certain ways. But why do you think Hasbara Hal has that trait? Was it programmed to be like an Ian Carroll, where it's supposed to, you gotta look like you're, you know, like you're concerned in a way, so therefore you can get the main sticking selling point.
Yeah.
So you say, well, no, you're not blowing that out of context. I don't think that Palestinian kids should be killed. However, Hamas or whatever. I mean, it's got to be something that's been programmed into the system. Why it slips up, and you know, you'll be like, Hasbara Hal. No, wait, you're wrong over there.
Right.
You have to have a theory, Keaton.
I mean, I don't know. When we covered it, I mean, to go watch that segment, it was a funny segment. It could just be that the AI isn't as precise and doesn't pick up on certain ironies and sarcasms in certain conversations. It could be an op. It could be like an Ian Carroll job. They should have an Ian Carroll chatbot. Yeah. Maybe Ian Carroll is a chatbot. Maybe his tweets are a chatbot. Yeah. Maybe he is AI. Maybe he's a hologram. Who knows? Hey, Russell Brand, here's a profile in Courage. He felt compelled to tweet this out. This is a breach of the selfie contract.
A selfie? Sure. Free Palestine. I don't care about Palestine. That's sad. I feel like it's a breach of the selfie contract. If you want to get a selfie with Seinfeld, you've got to say, I'm an admirer of your stand-up comedy. I love the show. Selfie. Also, though, I've got strong views on the Israel-Palestine conflict. I'm going to just bring that up in the midst of this.
Now, why would you feel compelled to even put that take out? This is why Russell says he's got some kind of compromise.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say compromised, right? Like, at the end of the day, when you see people like Russell Brand, I often compare him to RFK. They're too smart on too many other things to be too stupid on situations like this. Like, you understand that they are compromised, and what do you know? It's what have we heard about, Russell Brand and RFK? There's sexual accusations out there. So who knows what the Mossad has on these guys? I think it was Ray McGovern who said on a show before that every single member of Congress is compromised by the CIA or the Mossad. They have dirt on every single one of them. So they're compromised in one way or the other. And I mean, Russell Brand has to be, probably in your mind too, one of the most disappointed figures out there, where you thought that we had some guy who has some common sense rationale that would call balls and strikes accordingly, has been just, this whole piece right here, why would you put that out there? Because you're compromised and you're paid to do that.
Yeah, why would you? Orders. It's such a milquetoast take. It's not like you had to get that opinion out there. Why would you put, that's your position? A guy making a heartless statement like that? Hey, I don't care about Palestine. You feel a need to put that out there? Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange. And I used to love Russell Brand. As recently as like mid-2023, we would feature his work on our show quite a bit. He was he advocated for an Israel boycott in 2014 because that was not the last real flare-up of violence. It was 2021. But prior to that, 2014 was like the bloodiest escalation of violence in the conflict. And he was calling for an Israel boycott at the time. And so, yeah, it is extremely upsetting in that respect. But Seinfeld was not the only victim of this. Jimmy Kimmel got punked as well. And Jimmy Kimmel almost said it, but he stopped himself.
Free Palestine? Oh, free Palestine. Oh, what? Free Palestine? Yeah.
What?
You want me to lose my paycheck, Keaton?
Yeah.
What do I do? Say free Palestine? Oh, free Palestine. Oh, what? Free Palestine? Yeah.
There's the good liberal, anti-racist Jimmy Kimmel. If you want to shame liberals about this issue, call them the thing they most detest being called, which is racist. Because I do believe that if you are pro-Israel, you are, in practice, a white racist. If you're Jimmy Kimmel and you believe in the rights of a white settler state to go in and colonize land and brutalize people there, yeah, I think there's an element of abject racism there. And to see these Hollywood do-gooders not be able to say this is a great tactic. Just go up to them. You don't assault them, obviously. You ask for a selfie. If they're willing to take a selfie, you say free Palestine, put the camera rolling, see how they react. That should be widespread. In New York and LA, people should be doing that to these famous people all the time. Especially, look, Seinfeld markets himself as a nihilistic prick. But, Kimmel, we've seen monologue after monologue after monologue on his show about what a great and compassionate person he is. But apparently it does not extend to the Palestinians.
Yeah. Well, the difference is that Jerry Seinfeld, right, he has a personal connection to being a pro-Zionist, right? His whole shtick is about being a Jewish guy from New York, whatnot, George Costanza, whatnot. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have that connection. I've seen Jimmy Kimmel at the San Gennaro's festival in LA when I was there. It's a small little crappy one, not like the good one you got in New York, but he would show up all the time and hang out and say, talk to some of the Grandsons of Italy, which is this Italian organization I used to work with that used to do like, Christmases for, orphanage kids and all these other little great things for the community. So when Jimmy Kimmel says that, he's saying that, whoa, I don't want to upset the apple cart over there. It's my bosses over there with my checks. It's very telling. It's different than that personal connection that Jerry Seinfeld has. And it should tell you everything you need to know, people, right there. You should once again, who are the bosses? Who are calling the shots? It scared Jimmy Kimmel so much. He goes, wait a second. What do you mean? You want me to get rid of my paycheck over here? I can't say that.
Yeah, no, it is the third rail for everybody. And I know Jerry talks about growing up on a kibbutz. Look, there are people in my life who I don't pick fights with, who I think are sincerely brainwashed. I think Jerry takes it a step further than that, appearing at these fantasy camps with IDF soldiers. I mean, and look, you could chalk it up to brainwashing. I'm sure he was brainwashed at a certain point. But at a certain age, at a certain stage of your life, does it not fall to you, especially if you are going to speak out on these things, does it not fall to you to educate yourself? Now, granted, in this case, he was ambushed, but he's come out and made pro-Israel statements in the past. He went to that IDF camp. That was 2018, I think, where he's posing with the soldiers with the giant machine guns. I mean, he's just a sick guy at this point. And I say this as someone who not only is Seinfeld, in my opinion, the greatest TV show of all time, I think it's one of the seminal works of art that humanity has ever produced. I think Seinfeld is revelatory, and I can't stand to even watch it, really.
But I mean, listen, Keaton, I mean, you went to Hebrew school, right? I grew
up.
No,
I didn't go to Hebrew school. No,
you didn't go to Hebrew school. Did Russell go to Hebrew school?
No, my Jewish grandparents used to babysit me a couple times a week when my parents worked in the city. That's the closest thing I got to Hebrew school.
But you heard about Hebrew school, right? It's like little.
I've been to bar mitzvahs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Boca Raton. I went to my high school was 75% Jewish, 20% Italian, and 5% other. So, I've sat around and had a lot of brisket and cavelta fish. I can't stand that stuff.
Oh, it's horrible. I never ate that.
Terrible.
I was never willing to eat that.
But I've sat around those dinner tables with my friends who went to Hebrew school, which was little Zionism school. And if you can convince somebody that they are a victim, you don't know how far these people will go. I mean, there's people right now that after the first episode I did on Jimmy's show after October 7th, I got Norman Finkelstein to come on. I think you guys had him follow on up and come in too as well. But after that episode, I lost friends here in Boca Raton, and I also lost friends in LA. And some of the friends I lost in LA were considered, one of them was considered to be like the biggest pro-anti-war voice out there. However, he looked at himself as almost a victim, older guy, whatnot. He looked at himself as a victim that he will justify what is going on today because they were programmed and taught differently. And we were programmed and taught differently here in the United States with our empire education. I mean, we were taught how many times, Keaton, that we're going around, our soldiers are like Captain America, fighting for human rights and decency and stuff. But we're really out there fighting for resources, poor people fighting for rich people to steal their resources. So, I mean, we've been taught and programmed in so many different ways that, it doesn't surprise me that Jerry Seinfeld is acting this way because I've seen a lot of other people, even normal people, not people who are in the public spotlight, have the same type of attitude and mentality when it comes to this situation right here. And I've lost a lot of those friends.
Yeah, I bet. And, Finkelstein is a guy who's really given a lot of his life to this issue in more ways than one, not just devoting a lot of time to it, but at great expense, at great career expense, at great social expense. No, that was a great interview. I mean, I think I texted you right after that. That was an amazing interview. That was one of the first full-length interviews I had ever seen with Norm. I had seen bits and pieces of stuff that he had done. We interviewed him ourselves for his book, which was not about Israel-Palestine. It was about academia and stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, that was a very, very revealing talk. It was about 90 minutes. And yeah, it was great. And yeah, I mean, it comes at a social cost. It really does. It's that charged.
And I got to say that too, I'm very proud of Norm because it's like he was an example. And there's a lot of other people after October 7th, people I don't even agree with on a lot of things, like, Katie Halper, being a Jewish voice out there pushing back against, probably what a lot of your uncles and aunts stood for. Because I've sat around those tables. Like I said, I grew up in Boca Raton. I had so many mentors that were Zionist, you know what I'm saying? And, I continue to talk to them if they want to open up that dialogue. But I'm very proud of those people. Like I said, there's a lot of people that I don't even necessarily agree with that are Jewish that are standing up and saying, not in my name. I really tip my hat off to people like that and people like Norm who carried that torch. It's really important.
As do I. Indeed. All right, we're going to move right on here. Mordor Socialist Movement. Jimmy depicts Elon as possibly fighting the deep state. You guys sure there aren't good billionaires? So confused. Please clarify. Need eggs. Yeah, no. As Cornell would say, we're blessed to be in precious conversation with Brother Jimmy. Yeah, we talk. We that's my answer every time. We talk. It's cool. It's fine.
You didn't put that up on the screen, so I didn't get to.
Precious.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, because I'm using Rumble Studio, which means I can't display the YouTube super chats. I can only display the Rumble rants.
Yeah, you can copy and paste. Come on.
Yeah, but this is on a different monitor.
Listen, there's a lot of people out there too as well that we've talked about. Listen, there's people on the right that should know better, right? That are having these conversations. I've lost friends. I don't even speak really to Clint Russell and Dave Smith and a lot of these guys who are justifying and kind of selling this whole thing. I've always expected in people like Tim Cast and all those other people to sell this, that Donald Trump is taking on the deep state, that this is an outsider doing that. We know they're not. And I think you guys have also said it before too as well. When you had that segment on the Libertarians, which is a great segment, sellouts of the year, and you would talk about that and stuff like that, it's hard to go against the grain. It's hard not standing on a team because you don't get any love. You don't get any help. If you're an individual who thinks for yourself and promotes thinking for yourself, you're going to find yourself out in the cold because you're not going to get any love or help from the ruling class that actually control these social media websites and these platforms out there. So it's very hard to go against that, especially when you understand that there are people out there who are going to support you if you go along with that team sports mentality. It's tough.
Well, that's definitely. I mean, I think in the Libertarian Party's case, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think the lure of power, and look, they can point to Ross Ulbricht being free. Angela McArdle says, "Look, I saved this guy's life," and I get that. Like, I understand that. But at that point, you are more of a PAC for the Republican Party than a third party. Which is, look, if that's what you want to be, if that's how you view politics, that's how most people view it. Yeah. But, what goes along with that is now an ownership stake in everything that this administration does, including some very, very, very anti-libertarian, mind you, policy goals.
Like, is freeing Ross Ulbricht worth pissing on your Fourth Amendment rights, completely giving it up? Being pro-Zionist when you're supposed to be the party of Ron Paul, who's an anti-interventionist. They can try to sell that all they want. I mean, Angela's out the door now. She's gone on to bigger and better things, which is what I was suspecting anyways. Her whole trajectory was kind of moving towards probably getting a better job somewhere else, not standing behind and endorsing that Libertarian Party. But you're absolutely right. What is you got Ross Ulbricht free, good for you, right? And there was a lot of people who started, that news in the beginning. I think about Derek Brose, put that on the map when it came to, shining a light on what's going on Ross Ulbricht. But just because that one injustice has been sewed up doesn't make it you supporting the mechanism justice in the long run. You're still supporting the injustices. And when it comes to the Libertarian Party too, as well, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're supporting and endorsing things that are strongly anti-libertarian just for this one other thing. It doesn't equate. And they've shot themselves in the foot no matter what, anyways, moving forward. So
I agree. AVB, thanks for the $20. I'm a Mexican-American first-generation immigrant and a clinician by profession, but own a cherry orchard in East Washington that was passed down from mom and dad after their death. We are hurting badly for workers because they're scared to travel up here. I don't doubt that.
Pay them a higher wage, says Keaton Weiss, and they'll pick those cherries. Go ahead. You give them $25 an hour, twice what they would pay the other guy. They'll still quit in 6 hours. Get out.
Russell's in the area. You have him come and pick cherries. Tell Russell, hey, you got to take a train ride out to East Washington State. You got to pick some cherries for AVB.
Yeah.
I'll let him know. Looks as if Russell was using one of Smooley's mind-bending butt plugs. Thank you for that. What are you talking about on X? Okay. All right. Let's see
I
here.
didn't have truly on my bingo card mentioned in Due Dissidence today. Son of a.
What's the favorite GIMP yoga position of the new American fascist? The downward Doge. I like that. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. Try the borscht. Thank you. Killer hit. Appreciate that.
You got a great audience, man.
No, we got the funnest chat in the game for sure. The South Park episode where Cartman learns you can just call ice on people you don't like is more real now than when it was made. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Thank you, China Shill.
Oh yeah.
I grew up in North Florida. Most conservatives are okay with imperialism, lots of white man's burden and exceptionalism. Don't forget Trump invoked Manifest Destiny, his inauguration. That's absolutely true. Americans don't want to work slave wages. Immigrants shouldn't be coerced into working for slave wages. Pardon me. Oligarchs only want to pay slave wages. Well, yeah. I mean, look, one of the solutions here is to, for people who were here, have been here for 15, 20 years and are like working, just put them on the books so that they can't be paid slave wages anymore, and then have them organize with the people who are here. Like, that's one solution. Like, that's something you could do.
But also
right?
The other solution we talked about, the fact that we can use the American dollar anywhere in Latin America, is the reason why they can come here and work for it, because that dollar in their own country is much more powerful than it is in this country. That's also, once again, connecting the dots of saying, all right, stop the IMF from coming on in, putting on these crazy loans in which they have austerity measures that go on the people, right? All the dots, it's all connected, baby. That's all I got to say.
Yep. Well, no. Now, don't forget they have the Libra meme coin too.
Ooh, did you get on that? Did you? Yeah. How much? Did you call David Portnoy? Let's get on this.
Yeah. Wait. So Portnoy, because that's not in our cover. Well, we'll talk about it when we get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They bailed him out. I like that the whole thing is just like such a brazen scam. Like, how could you buy this shit and when you see how it works? When the celebrity gets fleeced for what, $6 million, they give him his money back. Didn't they give him his money back?
Well, before it tanked, supposedly he said he wasn't going to take it because he couldn't disclose who he was giving it to him. So he makes it look like it was a before. And listen, I appreciate him coming out a lot more. He came out a lot quicker than a lot of people who were caught up in the FTX scandal. I still haven't heard anything from Tom Brady about the whole situation, if he got his money back from the FTX scandal. So, I mean, listen, this is such an intriguing situation too, as well. And I'm glad you're doing this, this segment today too, as well, because when I was in Nicaragua, I talked to a delegation from Argentina, and I'll be able to kind of implement some of that of what we heard moving forward. Because I think the big question is he going to be, impeached? Is there going to be another avenue forward? Because that would, you talk about cosmic shifts, Keaton. I don't want to jump the gun, but man, I mean,
woo,
yeah, cosmic shifts.
Well, I'm surprised. Oh, we'll talk about it. That's our last segment of the day. We got one more between now and then. All right, folks. We're going to give you a little bit of Doge news here today. This will blow your mind, says Elon Musk. Tweets out from Vince Langman. If this doesn't make your blood boil, nothing will. Thank God for Elon Musk and Doge. They uncovered an earth-shattering scam here that thankfully America is saved. Now that modern art is not being taught to whatever this population was, I forget. Let's refresh our memory, shall we? Here we go. Here's Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire with the update.
Stewart explaining his connection to USAID.
Stopped. Doesn't matter. You have a contract. So, Turquoise Mountain, which my wife Shoshana runs, has a contract, had another $1 million to go. Money just stops.
Oh, hold on. Wait, there's a contract between some organization and USAID, and the contract stopped. And hold on, his wife ran that organization, and they were supposed to get another $1 million from the U.S. government, and that just stopped? What organization does his wife run? It's called the Turquoise Mountain Foundation. You can't make this up. The Turquoise Mountain Foundation exists to teach Afghani peasants about degenerate modern art.
So this is in some ways often called the first piece of conceptual art. Does anyone know what it is? I don't expect the ladies to know. Exactly. An artist called Marcel Duchamp, who's very important in Western art, put this toilet in an art gallery about 100 years ago.
That's where your money's going. Your money is going, or was going until Trump got hold of it, to pay off the wives of British politicians turned Yale professors to teach Afghanis who probably have more important things on their mind about how perverse Western anti-artists decided to pretend that urinals and toilets were, Caravaggio paintings in the early 20th century.
That's where your money is going. All $1 million of your money. My blood is boiling. Is your blood boiling? Man, I am stark raving mad over that. I am ready to take to the streets over that. $1 million for modern art for Afghani peasants. That's where all the money's going. That's why we don't have healthcare in this country.
Okay, so I'm trying to get the crux of this, the segment that we are going to talk about coming up too, because I didn't get a chance to see if you and Russell did any videos or any segments on the USAID and NED and that money, where it's being reappropriated.
Yeah, we did a whole piece on it. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't get a chance to see it, so I'm very curious to where you guys.
A lot of it's bullshit. A lot of it's scam artists. A lot of it is nation building. A lot of it is corrupt. And
the
I have
USAID we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I shed no tears for USAID. The point in setting up this segment with that is the amount of $1 million. To me, this is the magic trick. This is the psyop of Doge. Is they are highlighting culture war buffoonery like this, like modern art for Afghan peasants. And while they're slashing that, they're also pursuing massive entitlement cuts, quote unquote entitlement in the case of Social Security, but also Medicare, Medicaid. So while that's getting everybody riled up, right, while we're owning the libs who teach the modern art to the Afghan peasants, top Social Security official exits after clash with Musk's Doge over data. The acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration left her job this weekend after a clash with billionaire Elon Musk's U.S. Doge service over its attempts to access sensitive government records. 3 people familiar with her departure said Monday. Michelle King, who spent several decades at the agency before being named its acting commissioner last month, left her position Sunday after the disagreement, the people said. President Donald Trump appointed Leland Dudek, a manager in charge of Social Security's anti-fraud office, as acting commissioner, while Frank Bisignano, the president's nominee for permanent commissioner, is vetted by the Senate, according to 3 individuals who spoke on the condition of anonymity to talk candidly. A public announcement is expected this week. Dudek had posted positive remarks on social media about Doge's efforts to cut costs and search for fraud in federal agencies, according to 2 of the individuals. What I know is that Doge wanted access to the Social Security Administration's sensitive files, the same way they're trying to do at Labor and Treasury, and the acting commissioner wouldn't give it, and she was replaced, said Nancy Altman, president of Social Security Works, a left-leaning group citing conversations with several current officials at the agency. Musk has increasingly turned his attention to Social Security in recent days, arguing that the program is rife with fraud and erroneous payments without offering evidence for his claim. King, a career staffer, has worked at the agency since 1994, according to the agency's website. She has also held senior positions in its Office of Retirement and Disability Policy and the Office of Budget, Finance, and Management. King could not be immediately reached for comment. The Social Security Administration's records include all Social Security numbers, comprehensive medical records for those who have applied for disability benefits, bank information, earnings records, and more, Altman said. There is no way to overstate how serious a breach this is, she said. Caroline Leavitt, spokesperson for Donald Trump, says, of course, we should have no fear. We're not going after people's Social Security. We're just rooting out the fraud. One example she gives is the possibility that tens of millions, she says, of dead people are getting Social Security benefits. So here she is trying to put your mind at ease that the legit people's money is safe.
Fake news reporters all day long here in the Washington, D.C. swamp who are trying to fearmonger the American people into believing that this administration is going after their hard-earned tax dollars and their hard-earned Social Security checks. So I want to set the record straight on your show tonight, Sean, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do so. President Trump has directed Elon Musk and the Doge team to identify fraud at the Social Security Administration. They haven't dug into the books yet, but they suspect that there are tens of millions of deceased people who are receiving fraudulent Social Security payments. And so their goal in going into the Social
I just wanted to pause. Tens of millions of deceased people receiving Social Security payments, according to them.
Security Administration is to identify three things. Number one, to identify duplicate payments and to end them. Number two, to identify payments that are going to deceased people who are no longer living and should no longer be receiving that money. And number three, to protect the integrity of this system for hardworking Americans who have been paying into it their entire lives.
There it
so
is.
Rest assured to all of the people watching your show tonight, if you paid into the system, honestly, you will continue to receive your Social Security checks. Do not buy into the lies from the legacy fake news media who are trying to fear you and scare you into believing otherwise. This is what we've seen them do about President Trump for years with every promise that he has made. And he's going in there to protect your hard-earned money. That is the ultimate goal.
There it is, to protect the integrity of the system.
Because Keaton, where were those checks going? They were going to people in the radical left, and they were also going, we found out, to people in China. So we're going to get that money. I mean, my head is spinning. I don't even know where to start this conversation or ask these questions, because this is, once again, the two-party illusion doing their dance to make you think that one side is so illegitimate and the other side is going to take care of you. I mean, the thing I find most in awe when I see these conversations, we hear these conversations about Doge going into the IRS, is seeing the Democrats on the left do the same thing they did for USAID and the NED, is protect those agencies, actually act like those agencies are legitimate. That if we go after USAID, we're hurting all the aid they really give, when yet they don't even identify for real what USAID is. You know, I've said this before. I go to Latin America, so I understand their role there. They are pretty much the PR firm for the regime change industrial complex.
Sure. Yep.
Of course, there's some embezzlement going on and getting funded back in, but the main reason why they exist, they came out. The NED came out of the whole Iran-Contra scandal. USAID kind of used the same mechanisms as far as justifying, regime change in these other countries. That's what they are. They are a CIA cut out. And that's what they're meant to do. However, when you see people like Elon Musk go in there at Donald Trump's behest, they try to sell you that these organizations are acting alone. Most of these organizations are taking orders from the State Department, are taking orders from the CIA. They're doing their work for them.
Well,
So
and now
at the
they're
end
going to
of the day,
continue
if you
doing
get-
that.
What's that?
They're going to continue doing that, just under the umbrella of the State Department now.
Exactly. And
It
they're going
won't
to be more
outsourced.
overt in situations. They're just not going to use these mechanisms, right? You don't need to do that. You don't need USAID. If you look at just Bolivia during the first Trump administration, it was Marco Rubio, who's now the Secretary of State, working the phone with the opposition, Evo Morales' opposition in Bolivia, to have a regime change. And then you have Elon Musk justifying it. We'll cool who we want. Those are the two guys who are in charge now. So if you get rid of the USAID, you're really not changing the behavior, are you? And that's the main thing to recognize. The behavior isn't changing. It's not like they got rid of USAID and said, we're ending sanctions on 30 countries. We're changing our behavior. That's not what happened. So you have this back and forth where you have Democrats, unfortunately, defending these agencies and these NGOs that are really, really bad. Because the IRS, they did hire all these people during the Biden administration that came in, and it was sold for people like Katie Porter, a congresswoman, and some other people like Chuck Schumer. They're bringing in all these people, Keaton, because they want to go after the billionaires. No, they're not. They were bringing in these people to come after us, to find out what we're. I mean, that's why they made all these crypto laws too, as well, for younger people who are holding on to crypto, that they wanted to make sure they can get some form of like a capital gains tax or a tax when they cash out these cryptos and they've made money on it. They did hire all these people to come after us. So, I mean, I see this dance, And I just don't know what to make of it, because once again, it's like both sides are lying. You
Well,
know, it's like this is a dance in front of us to keep us distracted and not look at the real problems.
Well, on the Social Security side of things, I mean, we did a whole segment, which we'll link to when we clip this video, of the now almost century-long push by mostly the Republican Party historically, although Democrats have given them plenty of help. Joe Biden wanted to cut Social Security, which we included video of that in that piece. They want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Medicare. They want to cut Medicaid. They want to cut disability, which, of course, you have access to disability payments when you go into the Social Security system. That's what it's about. It's about cutting those programs. And she says in item number 3 there, right, after the tens of millions of dead people getting Social Security payments, she says we're there. Number 3, third goal is to protect the integrity of the system, which sounds specific when it's third on a list of 3 things. It's actually quite vague. And of course, what they mean is that they are going to try and cut Social Security, which has been, like I said, an almost century-long goal of, like I said, mostly the Republican Party, but with the Democrats' help at times for sure. They've never been able to really slash Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid the way they wanted to. Now they see an opening to be able to do that because people are in such a frenzy of having had enough and fuck it, I'm glad they're in there. Now is their opening because they have you whipped up in a frenzy where you're so incensed about the Afghan peasants being taught modern art that they'll slash that and they'll slash Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, disability at the same time, and you will consent to it because you're whipped up in a frenzy over the cultural wedge issues that they are highlighting as part of this Doge crackdown, more specifically, of course, within USAID. But let's hear some specifics about some of these claims that Doge is making now.
Cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old.
Did you catch this moment? Elon Musk is saying Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, has found evidence that 150-year-olds are receiving benefits from the Social Security Administration. So is it true? Well, we dove in and we want to give you some context. So here's what we know. Elon Musk did not provide any evidence to back up his claim. And because the records are not publicly available, it's not possible to independently verify what he's saying. But CBS News has reached out to the Social Security Administration for more details. The Social Security Administration basically provides payments to people who either are retired or can't work because of a disability. And by the way, in 2023, more than 70 million people received those payments. There has been evidence of improper payments and fraud within the agency in the past, according to its oversight body, the Office of the Inspector General. A 2024 audit from the office found the agency had made $72 billion in improper payments from 2015 to 2022, which accounted for less than 1% of the $8.6 trillion in total payments that were made during that period. The Inspector General called on the agency to improve death verification efforts after a 2021 report found the agency had paid approximately $298 million to about 24,000 deceased beneficiaries. And unless you qualify for survivor benefits, collecting SSA payments for a deceased person is illegal. A 2023 report from the Inspector General found there were 18.9 million people born in 1920 or earlier who had no death information in the agency's records. And 44,000 of them were still receiving SSA payments. CBS News could not find examples in the Inspector General reports where they said a recipient was 150 years old.
Okay, so what you see there is that they have tens of thousands of examples, not tens of millions, tens of thousands of dead people, or in the second example, likely dead people, who have received Social Security payments who should not have. That's tens of thousands, not tens of millions. Let's take a look at the other side of this, though, which is more common than you might think, which is Social Security error declared Philadelphia woman dead. So there's also the problem in Social Security of people who are still alive being mistaken for dead people and having those payments cut off. I had a little fun with this, folks. I made a little montage for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this.
A simple error has turned a woman in West Philly into the living dead. She no longer has access to her bank accounts, her health insurance, and her retirement benefits because a Social Security mix-up declared she was deceased.
Yeah, she turned to CBS Philadelphia for help with this disaster. Consumer investigative reporter Josh Sidorowicz is in your corner. Josh, how does something like this happen?
Well, it happens more than you might realize, Natasha. Ultimately, it is the Social Security Administration that keeps track of who's dead or alive in this country. But when they get it wrong, it can have deadly serious consequences.
A Valley man learns he has been declared dead, even though he is very much alive. So this morning, our Let You Know team is talking about how he was able to prove to Social Security that he's alive, and the team is also sharing ways to make sure this never happens to you.
I'm really not dead.
But the Social Security Administration declared Daniel Kapitanovic otherwise. A big shock as he was preparing for an operation on his heart.
Well, a woman in Douglas County is in a little bit of a tricky situation. Her Social Security number says she's dead, but let me tell you, she is very much alive.
Tonight, a bizarre and disturbing story involving a retired man from Harlem getting Social Security, who discovers the federal government has declared him dead. His bank account frozen, his benefits shut down, all of which would be understandable if he weren't alive.
Are you dead or alive?
It depends.
Say what?
According to Social Security, I am deceased.
Well, the upstate couple you're about to meet had to deal with headache after the father was mistakenly declared dead by the Social Security Administration.
Fox Carolina's Zach Polutsky looked into this mistake and found out it's more common than you'd think.
It happened to my mother-in-law not that long ago. She applied for a new credit card and was rejected because the bank thought she was dead.
You don't look dead to me.
And I'm not.
She's very unique. She's been dead 6 times and come back to life.
The Social Security office declared her dead even though she's very much alive. And now that bureaucratic blunder is causing her some real-life, big-time problems.
I want people to know that Social Security is a... a pain in the behind.
By any definition, Sandra Hazel is alive. But she says in 2022, as she struggled to set up her retirement benefit with the Social Security Administration, the agency wrote to her, "We recently discovered that our records wrongly showed you as deceased."
How can you say that I'm a deceased when I'm alive?
2 years later, she says that dubious death still haunts her.
This would freak me out. I think it would you too. Imagine finding your credit cards, your ATM cards, everything shut off because you've been mistakenly declared dead.
Every year, the government wrongly marks thousands of people as deceased, which, as you can imagine, can have a negative impact on their ability to get a loan, a job, and more. This is according to audits done by the government on itself.
Of the 3.1 million deaths reported to them each year, less than a third of 1% are wrong and need to be corrected. Now, that sounds small as a percentage, but when you use a calculator, it equals about 10,000 people a year wrongfully reported dead. They wouldn't tell us why they thought Christine Rowe died, but said anyone they accidentally kill should go to their Social Security office to get things sorted out.
Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that. It was put together for your entertainment. So yes, you have people who are dead collecting benefits they shouldn't get, tens of thousands. And then you have 10,000 a year who are mistaken for dead, who are still alive, who have the payments cut off. Which of those two groups are emphasized by Doge? The pattern here, whether it's Elon Musk or Javier Milei or Donald Trump or Carolyn Levitt, is always that the people are getting too much and they have to slash, which is why every millionaire and billionaire goon is cheering this on, because they are intent on cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and disability. That's what this is. That's why I think Doge fits the profile of a psyop, because they're manufacturing people's consent for their own economic disempowerment by ginning up culture war, grievance, and agitation.
But would you at least acknowledge the fact that there is a lot of useless, wasteful spending by the government itself? I mean, if you look at Donald Trump's first administration at the very end, remember in December when they vetoed him when he was going to cut off a lot of aid that was going to other countries, whatnot? And I think he made the statement like, thank God we don't find life on Mars, because if we did, Congress will find a way to send them a few bucks, right? I mean, that really played well. And when you poll the people out there, going back to your comment about I think it was FDR, right? When people will sell some of their liberties to get a meal because they're so desperate. And when they themselves are so desperate right now, there is no economy, they can't barely pay rent, and they see all this wasteful money going out, they're going to go ahead and endorse this. So they are endorsing, a lot of people are endorsing, and I'm talking not just people on the right. There's a lot of independents that are endorsing this, that are having a hard time out there with the lack of a workforce. They're going to say, that's good. I'm glad they're finding this money. I'm glad they're finding this waste. The question I have, though, Keaton, is where is that money being reappropriated to? Are we going to get a check now that they found all that waste? Are they going to send the money directly to us?
Well, of course not.
I think we all know where that money's going, right?
Well, of course not. And my argument is that they're not just going to cut the waste. They're going to do what Javier Milei did. Javier Milei is Elon Musk's political hero, not Donald Trump. They are going to take a chainsaw, literally in Javier's case. I don't think Trump would wield a chainsaw that well. He doesn't seem to be the physical type to do that. But they are going to take a chainsaw to the social safety net. That is their goal. That has been their goal for almost a century. They have never been able to do it to the extent they've wanted to because they have never been able to manufacture the consent for it. Now they can, because people are whipped up in such a frenzy that they are going to able to smuggle this through. And I do think that is what they are intent on doing. Elon tweeted out a couple weeks ago, this is what informed our segment, this is the mother lode of fraud, which is Medicare, Medicaid, disability, Social Security. The Government Accountability Office, which was the sort of official Doge before it got this sort of tech glam makeover, they issued reports outlining the waste in Medicare, the waste in disability. You know what they recommended to cut back on a lot of that waste? Denying seniors powered wheelchairs. Right? Don't give them a powered wheelchair. Give them a regular wheelchair or a cane or a stick. Give them a piece of wood. Break a piece of wood off the tree and make them walk with a stick. This is what they do. This is what they recommend. And so, and this on a large scale is what is in store for us right now. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Yeah. And you know, I think part of the ease in rallying people behind trimming waste is, number one, of course, waste is just inherently bad, but by definition, waste is waste, right? So nobody's like, you're forcing people to come out and defend waste. Nobody can do that, nor am I. What I'm saying is that is code for slashing the social safety net under guise of waste. They're going to say, oh, you have that herniated disc from the car accident 3 years ago and you're still collecting disability? That's waste. Go back to work.
Tough
it was
it
a
up.
few years ago. Tough it up. That's what they're going to do. It's very obvious that's what they're going to do.
Yeah,
that's why he
listen,
called this the mother lode, right? Because with this video here that we just showed you, right, this got into what some of the actual waste is, and it is there. The actual waste accounts for less than 1%, right, according to this. Now, I'm not saying I've studied this for decades, but that is pretty consistent with what I know about this, which is that, yes, there's waste, but inherently Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are not only good, they are necessary, and the Elon Musks of the world are intent on destroying them, and destroy them they will, sure as I'm sitting here.
Well, that's why they call them entitlements. That's why it's code for like,
Right.
okay, somebody taking advantage of a system. Why are they entitled to anything?
Right.
Slackers in our society.
Well, by the way, just sorry to cut you off. If we believe in Medicare for all, if we believe in universal health care here, which maybe not all of our audience does, and that's fine. But if you believe in universal health care, then you don't believe in medical fraud. There's no such thing as someone who's not qualified to receive medical benefits.
Yeah.
Just philosophically. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no. I mean, that's a good point, too, as well. And I think that, that's another larger discussion we need to have, too, as well, because I think when people say to me, Pasta, you don't believe for Medicare for all, I never said that. I don't believe we have a Medicare system. We have a sick care system, right? We need to fix it on the front end as well as the back end. Why are so many people having heart disease in America? Why are there more concentrated diabetics in this country than there are in any other country out there? And at times before, it's interesting now where you see this whole situation with RFK coming in. And I thought one of the biggest disasters, one of the biggest missed opportunities, I should say, not just a disaster, was when Bernie Sanders and RFK went at it. I would have liked to see Bernie Sanders say, listen, RFK, I don't agree with you on many things, but if you want to help kids in schools and their lunches, I'm with you. Let's do this together. But it's never like that. It's always, a partisan issue. Remember when Michelle Obama tried to fix that? Hey, remember when Bloomberg Tried to eliminate the lunch pail sodas that you can get at 7-Eleven. Remember they had the soda that had like a lunch pail. I mean,
the
nobody
big gulp.
needs that much freaking soda.
Right.
And when Bloomberg tried to do it, the Republicans were up in arms at it. No matter what, you're always going to have both sides fighting with each other. And that's why we need middle of the road, common sense, nuanced people to get into office eventually on the local level to fix these things. People who are going to come in there and say, listen, I want to make sure nobody is going to miss out who needs medical attention, who needs a cane. We're not going to go tell them to get a switch, but we also got to cut this weight because they're using these NGOs, they're using these departments to embezzle money to a lot of their friends. And this is what we need to cut out. But we don't have that. We have just this polarizing rhetoric from both sides that's just pitting people against each other rather than just having the common sense approach of fixing this the way it needs to be fixed. Nobody will be left behind, especially when it comes to our medical system. But we're also going to make sure that so many millions of dollars are not being embezzled. And you're right, though. I think that, Keaton, it's done on purpose so they can use it as an excuse to shut everything down. It is this libertarian mindset on how to fix things. Government's corrupt. We don't need so much oversight. So what do? I use the metaphor. Libertarians in a football game want to take the referees out and think that it's just going to manage itself out. It's never going to work that way. We just need common sense regulations. We need common sense oversight. And that's why we need to fix our election system.
Did you ever see the meme, how a libertarian eats a pizza? It's a circular pizza with a triangle cut right out of the middle of the pie.
No,
so that nobody else can get a slice of pizza. Yeah,
I didn't see that.
It's a good one. I saw that a while ago. I didn't bookmark it. I should have. It's a good one. But no, look, if you look at Doge, I think you could divide it as, you know, I agree with everything you said. It's three things: the CIA shit, the real nefarious shit, the nation building, the regime change. That's going to stay. That's going to be folded under Marco Rubio for the time being. The other shit, like the woke stuff, like what the Daily Wire guy made a big thing of, with the Afghan peasants being taught modern art. Yeah, those people are going to get screwed. And there's a lot of schadenfreude over those people getting screwed because, yeah, they are the kind of, you know, just useless liberal bureaucrats who leech off the system to create nonsense for nobody. Right? Nothing that means anything. If anything, that's sort of part of manufacturing consent for the nation building in a way, if you view it as a sort of clash of values, right? Maybe it's a little abstract, but not too much. Okay, so yeah, they're getting what's coming to them, and we like that, right? We're happy about that. And then there's this other part. And this other part is that under the guise of doing all this, they are going to do what they have wanted to do for decades, which is cut the kinds of programs that ordinary people and seniors and sick people and poor people depend on. This is what Milei did in Argentina, and the poverty rate went through the roof. And not only did the poverty rate go through the roof, but the state of poverty just degraded and degraded and degraded, where now some private reports are talking about the poverty rate coming back down because they're getting more investment there now. You still have the lower third of the population living in just the most desperate squalor you could imagine.
Yeah.
That is what we are on the road to. I'm telling you right now, that Javier Milei is Elon's political hero, not Donald Trump. He glommed on to Donald Trump because he knew he could do this under Donald Trump.
Yeah, and look at everything that Milei stands for. Pro-Zionist, right? He does the same thing with Donald Trump. Go to the holy site, touch the wall, really feel it.
Yep.
Pro-Ukrainian, right? He took the country out of bricks, but what he did over there in Argentina is something that we have to also examine, because I think a lot of Democrats, when you see the Bill Maher types and the people who went on the show, you know, oh my God, the Republicans, they have no heart. They are cutting USAID. There are, like, you have to do a little good in those organizations. There are, like, you know, USAID programs that have probably provided desk for children in Africa or water wells and stuff, because you have to, that's the marketing. You have to show that that's what you're all about. But there's a lot of nefariousness in there. I suspect that when it comes to the IRS or Medicare and all these other things, they do a lot of good and a little bad, but they're going to highlight the little bad to cut the whole thing. Hey, listen, Keaton, instead of cutting the waste out of the IRS and saying people are dead, when that person said, I'm not dead, it reminded me of that one guy who said, I'm not a cat. Remember the lawyer? He was a cat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a cat. No shit. All right. We know you're not dead, pal. But I suspect that, you know, a lot of people are going to suffer with these cuts. And if you, instead of cutting them, right, You want to cut the waste, leave everything else behind that's really beneficial to society and the older people. Why don't you just cut into that $7 billion you're sending over to Israel instead?
Well,
There's
yeah,
a lot more
there you go.
shot hole over there, right? That's
Absolutely.
the real the crux of this issue and stuff, is that the money that they're wasting on these foreign wars is a lot more than the money that they're wasting over at the IRS or Medicare or Medicaid or Social Security for that matter. It does a lot more good than bad.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. Brent Yoendo may make it to work or strike back on Saturday. I think Russell signed my Terminator 2 cop figure in package. I'm going to ask Hedges, too. They be foretelling the rise of AI. Well, I can't speak for Chris, and I technically can't speak for Russ either, but I'm sure he would sign that for you. Natalie Williams, thanks for the $5. Are they going to give us back all the money we've invested into Social Security and Medicare? Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about calling them an entitlement, in quote. Janice Anderson says, entitlements are entitlements. We paid for them, so we are entitled to collect on them. Took over 3 years for my disabled sister to get approved. Yeah, no, it's brutal. My mother-in-law is on disability, and yeah, it is tough. It is tough. And I don't think we should be waiting until they do that to speak up about it. I think we should do it now, so that maybe they won't. Maybe they'll back down. You know, Steve Bannon came out and said, you know, we have to be careful how we approach Medicaid. He says a lot of MAGA are on Medicaid, and so we can't just take a meat axe to it. You know, if people actually get out in front of it and make noise about it and communicate that there will be a political price to pay if you slash these programs, then they might be inclined to back down. Maybe, maybe not. But it's not going to happen as long as everybody is going around just cheerleading them because some fucking modern art teacher in Afghanistan got shown the door. Like, that's the road to ruin if that's all you're focusing on, in my opinion.
A volcano also erupted in Italy, and Steve Bannon blamed China for it. So just
yeah, there you go. If Pasta promoted a brand of pasta, I would buy his pasta. Sell some pasta.
Well, if Keaton goes in a partnership over here, this guy cooks over here. He's using the olives and the raisins in the Sicilian dish. I mean, that's like complex palate stuff over there.
That's Mediterranean cooking, yeah, with some lemons.
If Two Dissidents is going to be my partner, I'll go in a pasta brand, especially if we can get Russell to do some of the commercials out there. You can really
there you go. Yes, he would be a great pasta salesman.
Awesome.
Put him on a jar of sauce.
Oh,
That would move. All right, here. Stoop sign. Mossad has deviled eggs on most celebrities and government officials, complete with Soros Hungarian paprika. Thank you very much. All righty. Original just in time. Was that Kramer's little person friend confronting Seinfeld? Oh, yeah. What's his name? Mickey. He kind of looked like Mickey a little bit. That's a good one. Seinfeld, the show, and the human being are both overrated. Thank you, Shadar the Vicious.
Curb Your Enthusiasm was much better, Keaton.
Curb Your Enthusiasm was great. It was great. I did like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yes, indeed. All right, we got one more for you guys. I hope you guys all enjoy this last segment. This is kind of the big one of the day. This is the fun one. Got to end with a fun one. Argentina's Javier Milei faces impeachment for promoting a crypto scam. That's right. Wyatt Reed and Oscar Leone from the Gray Zone did a great write-up on this. Saved me a lot of time because I would have had to pull from a bunch of different sources for this. But they thankfully did a great job. So
have you had Wyatt Reed on your show yet?
I have not yet. No, we should.
You guys,
yeah, we definitely should get.
You know, that's my roll dog in Latin America. Like that's my we've been to Cuba together. We've been to Nicaragua together several times. Like
I'd have invited him on today for this segment if I didn't have you co-hosting. I would have just brought him on for this. But
he's great.
You know, yeah, no, he's definitely great. Argentina's president Javier Milei has been accused of fraud and is likely to face impeachment charges after he promoted a sham cryptocurrency token which allowed a handful of con artists to dupe crypto owners out of hundreds of millions of dollars in a single day. The scam is believed to be the first cryptocurrency rug pull to have been orchestrated with the help of a sitting president. While the exact number of victims is unknown, around 75,000 people are suspected to have been swindled, and a judge had been appointed to investigate after at least 100 criminal complaints were filed against Milei in Argentina in the days since. Crypto token Libra jumped massively in value after Milei endorsed it on social media on February 14th, posting a link to purchase the coin and lauding the private project for encouraging the growth of the Argentine economy, funding small business and Argentine ventures. Milei went as far as framing the coin as a legitimate investment, writing, "The world wants to invest in Argentina." The URL for the Libra token's official website of VivaLibertadProject.com was a clear nod to Milei's campaign slogan, "Viva la Libertad, carajo." The page, which remains online, says the coin was being launched in honor of Javier Milei's libertarian ideas and was designed to strengthen the Argentine economy from the ground up by supporting entrepreneurship and innovation. The token immediately shot up from 27 cents to well over $4, then dropped to less than 20 cents in a matter of hours as a tiny handful of insiders who owned over 80% of the supply dumped their holdings, draining an estimated $280 million from the unsuspecting buyers. While horrified owners discovered they'd been victimized by a classic pump and dump scheme, Milei promptly deleted his post publicizing the coin. So here it is. In this particular screenshot, the URL was blacked out for some reason. I guess they didn't want to share a scam link. But there he is promoting the URL for the Libra coin. And there you have it. Goes from 27 cents up to $4. And then hours later, boom, that's the dump off where all of the naive buyers got
you ever go to
suckered.
Six Flags Atlantis, the way they had that one thing back in the day?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
It's the blueprint for the roller coaster. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In their place, Milei published a new message attempting to wash his hands of the matter, insisting he'd merely been supporting a supposed private enterprise with which I obviously have no connection whatsoever. I was not aware of the details of the project, and after having become aware of it, I decided not to continue spreading the word. That is why I deleted the tweet, he wrote. But a number of social media posts made clear that Milei had previously interacted with at least 3 of the scheme's operators and met with 2 of them on multiple occasions. Further, the claim that Milei was not aware of the details of the project is contradicted by a prior statement he gave to Bloomberg, in which he insisted that the project was real and involved pure private financing. Just 2 weeks before the scam's culmination, Milei uploaded a photo to Instagram showing him posing beside Hayden Mark Davis, one of the creators of the Libra coin. As of publication, the post remains online. So here he is.
They like the same soccer team, Keaton. What are you talking about?
Right, exactly, yeah.
They're both Messi fans. That's it.
Yeah. Thumbs up. There he is. The day after the Libra crash, Davis took to Twitter to set the record straight. In a video message, Davis concedes that things didn't go according to plan with the meme token launch, but promises to re-inject the approximately $100 million they made from it back into the venture. So here he is trying to do some damage control.
My name's Hayden. I know there's tons of frustrations. I've had tons of crazy text messages on my phone. I'm here to set the record straight, both because there were things that were in and out of my control. I was only a part of what's happened with Libra, but also I want to just shed a little bit more light and let you guys at least see my face, because a lot of people that have been involved with this launch have gone either silent or are nowhere to be found. And I want to make sure there's A, accountability, and B, a structure going forward so that people don't feel screwed over. And I do believe there's actually an amazing way forward if people are open to it. Before I say anything else, I am indeed Javier Milei's advisor.
It's a great way forward.
Most of you guys have seen that either on Twitter.
I am
or
Javier Milei's advisor.
Form of social media. I am working with him and his team on much bigger tokenization and really cool stuff in Argentina, and I absolutely back him. What happened with Libra, I think there's many things I could say. There's only certain elements that I could control the launch. Definitely things didn't go according to plan. But rather than share all the details right now, because it's going to be a much longer video, it's going to be a much longer structure, I want to make sure you guys all know I'm a very direct, straight to the point person, and I think there's a very specific way forward here. My intention is every single dollar I've managed to round up, which I believe is every single dollar that's been collected or from fees or farming or liquidate, anything, I've managed to get back. And my intention is to inject everything back into the Libra chart. And my intention is to do that in the next 24 to 48 hours. I'm open if there's a different plan that benefits all of you more. For anybody, especially any crypto leaders that have a structural plan, and a structural plan quickly, I'm very open to figuring that out. But right now, that is my game plan.
All right. So.
Wow, so much to be learning from this one. I mean, Keaton, I know I lost 95% of your money. If you give me another chance and give me that last 5%,
yeah, right, exactly.
I'll make it up to you.
We're gonna build it back better, baby.
Yeah.
Yes. But in a subsequent written statement, Hayden heaped blame on Milei, accusing him of causing a wave of panic selling by deleting his X post and denouncing the project. The sudden loss of confidence had a catastrophic impact on the token's market stability, he wrote. As other users quickly pointed out, though, Milei's post wasn't deleted until the coin had already crashed by over 80% of its peak value. So he tried to manipulate the timeline to say that Milei deleting his post caused a panic sell, which is, of course, not true. Milei deleted his post after the sale, which was not a panic sale. It was the pump and dump. And by subsequent written statement, we mean the next post on that thread. So he posts a video saying, hey, everything's cool. And then under that, he heaps blame on Javier Milei in what's basically the same post. I mean, it's a one video within that graphic posted right underneath.
He said in the post that he is Javier's,
advisor, right?
Advisor.
Exactly.
Now he's going, so he didn't take, he took your advice, and that's right. Why. All right.
He says it's Javier. Yeah, he says I'm Javier's advisor, and then right under that, he says it's his fault. He created a panic. Yeah,
I shouldn't be laughing. People lost millions.
I mean, look, I did you see? I texted you.
You texted me it. Yeah, listen. It's at the yesterday's show we had to end up, so I didn't get to speak about the Libra coin situation with Milei, and there is very deep rooted things going in. I'll wait to the end of the segment when we get into the chitter chat to talk about where we go from here in this one, because this is very intriguing, and I often think about the video you did with Diane Sayre talking about money, how money being pegged to a commodity. Really, I think you guys did a great job of explaining the importance of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be gold or silver, but having a fair monetary system, right? There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this situation. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, of course, that got community noted. Readers added context. Libra had already lost most of its value 3 hours before Milei withdrew his support. So that line of bullshit obviously did not last very long. An hour and a half later, Argentina's Office of the President published a statement which characterized the entire scheme as the work of KIP Protocol, a company which helped create the token, and described Davis as affiliated purely with KIP, not the president. But it acknowledged that on January 30th, Milei had met with Davis, who, according to the KIP Protocol representatives, would provide the technological infrastructure for his project. However, Mr. Davis had no and does not have any connection with the Argentinian government, and was presented by representatives of KIP Protocol as one of their partners in the project, the official statement insisted. For their part, KIP Protocol has categorically denied involvement, issuing their own statement with the help of legal representatives in which they claim they're merely an AI infrastructure company and that it would be unusual to be pitching anything else. They said their company had no knowledge of or involvement in this meeting of January 30th, and certainly did not have any representatives present at this meeting. Though the company's CEO was photographed posing enthusiastically in October 2024 alongside Milei, the company maintains that the meeting was the only occasion on which any employee of KIP Protocol met with President Milei, and that no other employee of KIP has been in contact with Milei since. So there is the photo in October of 2024. Once again, there he is, right in the middle of it. So far, Davis remains the only figure to have conceded to participating in the plot. In an interview published on February 17th, Davis made a series of highly incriminating admissions, including acknowledging that insiders around him had sold off huge quantities of the token, making off with over $100 million while tanking the price, and revealing that he'd personally paid out $5 million of the proceeds to an acquaintance who was apparently lost that money in the scam. Davis defended his actions by describing the token, which was explicitly marketed as a social investment vehicle for the state of Argentina, as, quote, dog shit. I mean, these guys are funny. This is like a sci-fi comedy. It's like a futuristic comedy. All cryptocurrency is extractive to some degree or a zero-sum game. None of it has value. Whether it's a fucking meme coin or it's a giant utility project, it is all dog shit. Davis went on to explain that members of the team sniped the token, a method by which crypto insiders use algorithmic bots to identify new tokens and other situations ripe for manipulation, but claim they only did it to prevent other, more predatory investors from doing so. Davis also admits to having participated in the launch and having subsequently sniped the infamous Melania meme coin, the Melania Trump meme coin. So here is a clip from the interview in question.
But if you launch the coin, isn't it unfair for you to snipe the coin?
So I would say no, and I would say that for a couple different reasons. Number one, a lot of the times when, and again, this is like, I mean, again, it's a much larger conversation, which is what I told you in text. But most of the time when we're I have different money in different places, obviously. But from the standpoint of sniping, most of the time when we're sniping, we're attempting to avoid other snipers getting in, right? So whether that's, and by the way.
There you go. Saw the reaction on him.
Look at his face.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, I got a scoop
it's
here.
like that one guy that had to meet. Listen, if I don't steal your house, somebody else will.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If I don't steal it, someone else was. Exactly right. Yes. Another strange figure who appears to have been central to the scheme was Mauricio Novelli, with whom Milei had maintained business ties since early 2021, when the then congressman repeatedly lent his likeness to a company called N&W Professional Traders, which was co-founded by Novelli. A week before the scam took place, Novelli published a now deleted photo on Instagram in which he's seen posing at a Los Angeles Lakers game alongside Augustine Laje, a close associate of Milei who also worked as an instructor at N&W Professional Traders and who also promoted Libra on social media. In the year prior to the scam, Novelli reportedly met with Karina Milei, the president's sister and closest political confidant, on at least 4 occasions. So here is Milei doing some damage control. This is him speaking to the media after this whole thing blew up. We have 2 clips here. So here's Argentinian president defends sharing the Libra crypto token before it collapsed, saying he's a tech enthusiast. I didn't promote it. I just shared it. Yes, that's how he's trying to sell this.
Eso, yo no lo promocioné, yo lo que hice, lo difundí. Bueno, es lo mismo. No es lo mismo, no es lo mismo.
Bueno,
o sea,
sacale promocionar, difundir. Está bien que el presidente difunda eso, sabiendo los riesgos que tiene.
A ver, yo soy un tecno-optimista fanático y tengo una pasión por la tecnología y yo quiero que Argentina se convierta en un hub tecnológico. Entonces, toda propuesta, ¿sí? Que vos te encuentres que pueda mejorar el financiamiento, como es en este caso, digamos, para lo que serían emprendedores tecnológicos, o sea, es lo mismo, ¿sabes qué? Es equivalente a cuando vas a la inauguración de una planta. Entonces, ¿qué? Digo, vos sos responsable de que después de lo que sea la operatoria de la planta.
¿Para vos no cometiste ningún error? Te lo pregunto sinceramente, ¿no sentís que cometiste un error?
Ex ante no. Ex ante no, porque además yo obré de buena fe. O sea, ex ante no. Ahora, y ex post, digamos, si miro las repercusiones políticas y toda la miserabilidad política, puedo decir, bueno, ok, tengo algo que aprender.
Oh, he's a politician already.
President of the freaking Argentina. It's like if Nancy Pelosi would have come out, I'm just a market enthusiast. Yeah, I made all that money on stocks. But it's just that I'm an enthusiast of the market, Keaton. It's not that I have insider trader going on. You're the president of fucking Argentina. Oh, it's not the same. Yes, it is, you asshole.
Yeah, obviously. And now he tries to make the excuse that most of the people who lost money were bots and that very few of them were Argentinian, which I guess, I mean, when half the country is piss poor, I guess maybe not a lot of Argentinians have the money to invest in this scam. But let's hear this second part of things.
Hay 40.000 personas que invirtieron, estamos hablando de más de 80 millones de dólares y que perdieron muchísimo dinero. ¿Qué le decís a ellos que confiaron?
No, voy a dos cuestiones. Primero, que es falso que sean 44.000 personas.
¿Cuántos son?
Wait a minute. Lo primero que hay que
Wait a
entender es
minute.
que ahí
It's
había
English for
muchísimos
that one.
bots. Por lo cual no son 44.000 personas de ninguna manera.
Bots.
Claro. En el mejor de los casos se trata de 5.000 personas.
No importa, es mucha gente.
Ok, digamos, bueno, digamos, cuando vos tenés en cuenta, digo, que son nada más que 5.000 personas, y seguramente que diría, las chances de que haya argentinos es muy, muy remota. Lo que es muy importante entender es que son personas hiperespecializadas en este tipo de instrumentos. Es decir, dadas todas las dificultades que implicaba poder participar de este evento, ¿cuál es el punto? El punto es que vos tenías que ser un tipo hiperespecializado y estar recontra interiorizado en eso. Esto no es un tema menor. ¿Por qué no es un tema menor? Porque los que entraron ahí, y esto es muy importante entenderlo, es clave, todos los que entraron ahí, que de hecho lo hicieron de manera voluntaria, sabían muy bien a lo que estaban entrando. Es decir,
Well, they do now.
operadores de volatilidad. Es decir, son personas que operan con la volatilidad.
Sabían el riesgo.
Trade on volatility.
Exactamente, sabían muy bien lo que era el riesgo que estaban entrando. Es decir, no es que no saben.
Okay.
They
They
were
trade
aware
on
they were
volatility.
taking a risk.
Yeah, they all knew they were taking a risk. Once again, I'll refer you to the chart here. Spikes from 27 cents to $4 and then tanks instantly within hours. You're going to say that's
Correct.
normal volatility? I mean, it's just an absolute joke. They knew that what they were getting into. Well, they know what they're getting into now. I doubt many of these people will be burned again, despite Hayden's pleas there. Dear God, Javier Milei's Libra drained over $280 million US from nearly 75,000 individual traders. Just look at these numbers. From thousands to tens of thousands to millions of dollars, rug pulled in hours. Scam of the century in Argentina.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a guy giving a measured breakdown of this. Freedom, our President Milei committed an unconcealed, forthright financial fraud, enforcing our national state and treasury to cheat. So here's this guy's take.
Disastrous evening from the meme coin trenches. Javier Milei literally murdered millions of dollars from all of the meme coiners this evening. After launching his token, it pumped up to somewhere near $4 billion before promptly imploding, and it's been down only since. There's been a lot of analysis done up until now where it seems like a lot of insiders were dumping the whole time right out the gate, causing the price to pull back substantially. There were a lot of regular meme coiners who were buying in size because the literal president of the country of Argentina decided to tweet about this, post this on his Instagram, post this on his Facebook, but now it's all ended in absolute devastation. The real question is this story going to make it to the mainstream? Because this guy basically just rugged everybody in this space. It's absolutely devastating. And to claim on his website that this is going to be used to transform the country feels a little bit disingenuous at this moment in time, given the serious level of sell pressure by insiders. We all just collectively got rugged for those who trade meme coins, and it doesn't feel good. Hell of a move for Valentine's Day. I'd say Milei doesn't really have a whole lot of love for meme coiners. I'll be back tomorrow with more breaking news from the crypto market.
He doesn't have a lot of love for his people, and those people he just screwed over. And for him to say it's only 5,000 people, I mean, I love the answer from the reporter. Okay, so that's still a lot of people, right?
Right.
Just trying to keep him on message and trying to keep him, on the subject, not let him kind of weasel his way out of there. And I'm sure that there's a reason why they did this, right? Catherine Austin Fitts often talks about Bitcoin and how the whales can manipulate it. And that's where they decentralize corn. Just imagine what they can do and what's coming after this. I mean, there's going to be so many repercussions coming out of this whole situation, Keaton. Like, I'm also looking at the political point of view. When I was in Nicaragua just recently for the celebration of the revolution, I was hanging out with somebody from an Argentina delegation. And there's a lot of love in that country for Cristina Fernandez, who was the vice president. And yeah, Argentina has had a multitude of problems too, as well, especially when you're tied to these IMF loans and, the global economy. It's got a lot more to do to it than capitalism versus socialism, which what the ruling class wants you to think. But there's a lot of love for this woman, and there was a lot of outside influence pushing from the West to make sure that she was under investigation for fraud so she couldn't run again. They were fighting against that, and Christina decided to step back and say, I'm not going to test the system right now and see if I can do that. But I'm thinking right now, are they going to impeach him for this? Is he going to come under the gun? Because since he has got in, and, there's a lot of people who've praised this guy. I mean, wow, the libertarians are really batting 1,000 over here, aren't they, Keaton? I think Luke Rudkowski, who has in his intro, like, Javier Milei with the chainsaw, he might want to change that coming up right now because this is embarrassing. And this guy is not a libertarian, even though he's cutting all these social programs in which we talked about, which whatever economics you believe in, you can't do that quickly, right? You can't just come in there, especially when you got so many people in your society that are dependent on all these governmental benefits, right? You know what I'm saying? All these subsidized programs. If you cut them, you're going to make the poorest of the poor even poorer. I think you pointed it out. That's what he did. He's getting praised for that. But this guy also went along with every single Western plan out there. Not only is a big-time Zionist, praying in the wall of Israel, he was pro-Ukraine about sending them weapons. He walked away from any potential chance the country had for moving along into BRICS. Instead, went in and cozied up to people like BlackRock, right? And, of course. And all these other countries. So, I mean, what this guy has done, the implications, and I don't know if he's doing this because he's going to survive and it's going to allow them to make regulations on all the cryptos, because I think the ruling class and all these central banks are pissed off at people younger people investing and making money in crypto, that they want that money back. And using situations like this, we'll be able to manufacture consent for more, what's the word I'm looking for?
To usher in more regulation.
Regulations, but not just the regulations, the looking at you, the being able to spy on you, to be able to see you, to make you come forth and show your finances to where it's hidden. The privacy is going away. That's what they want. That's going to be ushering into place now.
Well, they could also outgun you. I mean, in this case, in the short term, they could just loot you and get the money back. That's what they did here. Now, this guy gave a pretty sober reaction to it. This guy, a little less sober reaction to it.
I'm broke! I'm broke! I'm fucking broke! I'm gonna find you! I'm gonna find you, Dennis! I'm gonna find you! You rugged me! I have nothing! I have to sell my Rolex! I have to sell it! I have to sell all my shit! I don't have anything! I guess you pieces of shit! You rugged me! You all rugged me, bro! And I'm gonna find you! I'm gonna find you!
You rugged me, bro. That's going to be the name of this episode.
He was rugged, though. He was rugged.
Of course.
I mean, this is what they did was disgusting. And listen, I appreciate Wyatt Reed. That was such a gray zone-y article, right? Like, just kind of pointing out the fact that this guy's going to weasel out and act like he never had any type of relationship with these people, where they were simply easily pointing out, no, he's talked to 3 of these people. He's met with 2 of them on several occasions. There's no hiding here, buddy. You're in on this. You're exposed. That article that Wyatt wrote is going to be so damaging to the Malay government. Forget about it. He might find himself on another hit list there, Wyatt.
Absolutely, yeah. So, just a reminder here: the moment Doge was born, very aptly tweeted as this was kind of going down here. In fact, a few days prior, in August 2024, Donald Trump and Elon Musk publicly discussed the idea of a government efficiency commission, citing Argentina's President Javier Milei as an inspiration. This is the famous Spaces event.
It'd be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
Well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, You want to quit? They go on
Yeah.
strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike, and you say, that's okay, you're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But, you know, if you look at Argentina.
Well, I'd be happy to
Yeah,
help
by the way,
out.
congratulations. I
Yeah.
just looked at the number of people that are listening to you and I chat. We'll call it a chat. But
Yeah.
congratulations. This is very good. I mean, it's great. And you're an interesting character. You know, the new head of a place called Argentina, and he's a big,
Malay's awesome.
he's great. And
Yeah,
he's a big
he's
MAGA
great.
fan. You know that. He ran on MAGA. And he took it to an extreme, too. He ran on MAGA, and I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats, he brought over, but he's doing a big job.
That's such a Trump thing to say. Bought a lot of hats because Make Argentina Great Again is still MAGA. So he was able to sell up a lot of hats.
The hats were made in China, Keaton.
Yeah. Don't forget, at the time, a report had just come out saying that the poverty rate in Argentina was 53%.
He really cut. And I'm
He could
hearing
really
they're
cut.
starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. You know, they had like
Yes,
2,000%.
exactly.
And they had inflation like not normal inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to
Yeah.
have that pretty soon. I think we
Yeah.
have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They
Yeah.
don't include a lot of the items that should be included, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's just from government overspending and not spending taxpayer money
Yeah.
effectively, and having just like so many departments you can't even name them all. And what Milei is doing is he's cutting government spending. He's simplifying things. He's putting in regulations that make sense, and Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant improvement
That's right.
in prosperity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not what I heard from my people in Nicaragua. They were saying it's just going to be a disaster with this dude.
Yep. And
Disaster.
that, like this guy. Okay, so, we've seen a lot of cults of personality when you do content online and you travel in online circles. You see a lot of like bizarre cults of personality around certain people. None as strange as this fucking guy. None as strange to me as this Javier Milei guy. I mean, where the fuck did this guy come from? All these people now all of a sudden singing the praises of Javier Milei. And this is why I played that to remind you, this is who Elon Musk idolizes. This is his political hero, much more so than Trump. Much more so than Trump. And that Spaces event, that was shortly after Elon endorsed him, right? I mean, that's when sort of the populist MAGA fused with, and I would say became overtaken by this sort of big tech version of MAGA, right? Much less populist than in 2016. And this is why. And now you have this guy just exposed as a complete scam artist, which obviously the whole thing he's peddling is a giant scam. That's what's kind of makes this interesting to me, aside from the whole sort of schadenfreude of it all. Schadenfreude for him, not so much for his victims, although I got to say that guy was pretty funny. The second guy we played.
He was very funny, but he was yoked. Man.
Yeah, he was. That guy, yeah.
I wonder what kind of razor he used to shave his chest, but I do feel bad. I mean,
Yeah, right,
he's got to
exactly.
sell his Rolex. Come on, Keaton.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a learning lesson in understanding this. Like I said, that I'm going to go back, and if you can maybe retweet it out or send it to me again, that episode you had with Diane Sayre when we're talking about economics, there's a reason why they don't teach economics in school, and George Carlin said it best. They don't want a society to understand how they're being screwed over. They just want a society smart enough to push the buttons and the brooms and, go to sleep and get back up and do it all again the next day.
100%.
This is a lesson in understanding, how monetary systems work. Because a lot of people do make fun of cryptocurrencies and they talk about the scams that can be going. But look at our own dollar. What's it backed in? It's a fiat currency. There's nothing backing it. So you look at the actions of what happened during the CARES Act. Which, by the way, is if Elon is going to use Doge, why didn't he go ahead and take a look at all the money that was embezzled out of the CARES Act? Oh, he can't do that because Donald Trump's name is on it, so we can't do that. But I mean, I think this is going to be a learning lesson on how economics works. Tying it to resources and understanding that on a global scale. We have to continue to look at that. The way the Chinese pegs their money to certain commodities. The Russians do the same thing, and it's a lot more stable. So I'm going to look at this whole situation, the learning lesson when it comes to crypto. Also, so much, what can the whales do if they want to do this? This was obviously a plan coming together where they signal each other, ready, go, dump the stock, and they hit a button, and everybody starts dumping that stock. So before the little guy can even do something to react, right? Well, listen, it wasn't as bad as what happened in Wall Street Bets. In Wall Street Bets, they destabilized. They disabled the ability to even sell the fucking coin.
Right. Well, that was a short sale, yeah. So that was had even more. That they were able to be much more ruthless in that example.
Yes, and it just paints a picture that the ruling class, those that knows and powers, don't give a shit about you. They'll rob you of your money in front of your face, and they don't give a damn. So I'm very curious to see what happens to Javier Milei. So if he does get impeached, what's going to happen? What type of government is going to come in there? The United States and the West doesn't want that changing. They don't want Cristina Fernandez in there. No way. She's a socialist, right? So, you know, the direct line to BRICS, you know, getting rid of that, BlackRock coming in, forget about it. This will have global implications if in fact he does get impeached. Who's coming in to replace him? And how will the West react to that? Forget about it.
Yes. So this is one more example of how these rich fucks mean you harm. They do not mean you well. It is the most obvious thing in the world in the case of Javier Milei. Should be obvious in the case of Elon Musk and Trump as well.
Yeah. Poor dude's got to sell his Rolex, Keaton.
Yeah, right, exactly. He's got to sell his Rolex. All right, Pasta, I got a little housekeeping to take care of, but I will let you go. You've been on here for 3+ hours. Thank you so much for joining. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Tell people where they can find you before you sign off.
Definitely go to my Twitter, my X, whatever. The guy Elon, when we're talking about, we got to find other systems. I hope Panquake comes through. I've been hearing some rumblings from Russia that Panquake is trying to get their shit together. And I heard some reasons why they were delayed. I know some people are going to say Pasta, pipe dream, let it go. But who knows? We need to find other systems out there that are open source that we can, you know, operate, talk, and communicate and do what we do on a level where the oligarchs aren't controlling us and looking over us. There's some really nefarious, sinister things going on in X right now. It's a controlled environment.
This story was suppressed on X. You didn't see much of this on X, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, some of these tweets went viral, but very few of them. Like the Milei interview, that was suppressed. Yeah. You couldn't see shit. I mean, even these clips I just showed, they had like, what, 10, 20,000 views? This is a major story. The video that the schmuck put out, what is his name, Hayden, that had 9 million. So there's clearly interest in the story. So Malay's, I won't say it's a mea culpa because it wasn't a mea culpa. His post-scandal interview gets, what, 10, 20,000? It's ridiculous. There's clearly suppression of stories that disrupt Elon's narrative 100%. No question about it.
It's coming. And in the beginning of the show, you mentioned all the stuff I do. I do the Homeless Left with Matt Weinglass a lot on Thursdays, my new partner in crime over there. Love that dude. He joins in on the Truth Wire, which was the Combo Couch. We do that on Monday and Friday. But Wednesday, the Wednesday show is my show on WBAI. You actually participated once when calling on in. It was a lot of fun. Wyatt Reed, who we talked about, he participated and called on in. So I try to get some people to participate and call on in, but the phone lines have been blowing up. I've done a lot of things in this realm for the last 7 years since I dove into the whole independent media journey. But nothing has excited me more than this WBAI show. Not so much by the people I work for and who are, in charge of what I do. It's the fact that I get to reach out to the people out there and they get to call on in. Nothing is scripted. We try to present it with a monologue in the beginning and say, this is the topic of the day. But to me, it goes back to the crux of why I do the things I want to do, to have these conversations, to let the discourse fly, to not hold back. So that WBAI show is called Drive Time every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, Greater New York. You can listen online. If you're in New York, you can listen on the radio. Thank you so much, Keaton, for letting me in. Thank you to Russell, who's not here. I always have a blast talking with you guys. I love the work you guys do. And I look forward to having more of these conversations in the future. And if I get to New York, maybe you could take a train, come down, cook me. That's
absolutely, yeah. Let's do it.
Cook me. That's a Sicilian chicken. I'd love
100%.
that.
Yeah, there we go. 100%. All right, man. Great to see you as always. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Craig Pasta Jardula, everybody. Round of applause in the chat. Thanks, Pasta, for joining us today. Full show today. The wheels keep on turning, everybody. Hey, if you like what we do and you want to help us do more of it, the best way to do that is to become a member. Go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals. Go to DoDissidents.locals.com. The Rumble viewers now, I got 1,000 Rumble viewers right now. You can click that bright red join button underneath the screen and join our locals. Everybody else, that's the link, DoDissidents.locals.com. For $5 a month, you get your name up in lights on the show credits. You get call-in access to our weekly Q&As, bonus live streams, including live stream access to our pre-recorded full-length interviews. We are interviewing Chris Hedges, the great Chris Hedges, tonight at 8 p.m. So if you sign up right now, you will get an email shortly with the invite for that stream. That interview will be made public later on this week, but paid members have live stream access with the live chat and early viewing access once the stream ends. So that's DoDissidents.locals.com if you would like to sign up. You guys are the backbone of the show. We say it every time because it's true every time. China Shill says cutting waste means that your back injury no longer qualifies for disability. Yes, that is right, China Shill. That is exactly what they mean. Nocturnal Human says, miss my chance to have invested in a Fuera coin. I like that one, a Fuera coin. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Doc Durkin, socializing Medicare, Medicaid, e.g. single-payer Medicare for all, would save 50%, likely, I suppose, with the cutting of for-profit insurance and for-profit medical industry. I would welcome those cuts. Thank you. El Kaminsky, please stop saying both sides for Dems and Republicans. They're the same side. Together they laugh their asses off at $20,000 a plate fundraiser at us fighting over their fake fights. The China Shill, we should nationalize the Federal Reserve and act democratically to control the monetary system rather than letting private banks do it, not benefit commodity hoarders by tying money to a commodity. Thank you, China Shill, very much. Let's see, do we have anything else over here on the Rumble Rant side? China Shill says a lot of libertarianism relies on treating the government as some guy that has its own goals, objectives. Government is a tool to be used by classes to advance their interests over others. Exactly. Thank you, China Shill. All right, that is everything today, folks. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you as always. Thanks to our guest host, Craig Pasta Jardula. We'll see members in a few hours with the great Chris Hedges. We'll see everybody else back here Thursday at noon Eastern with Russell and Shama Sawant in advance of the Workers' Strike Back Conference. Thank you very much, everybody, for spending the afternoon with us. Smash that like button on the way out. Smash that follow button on the way out. You are good for a 666. I give myself a headache when I headbang, so I will not be doing that, but I will give you your sound cue. All right. I know it's a Jewy excuse to say it gives me a headache to headbang, but it's true. And I have another interview coming up later, so got to keep the noggin in good shape. Thanks, everybody, very much for being here. We'll see everybody Thursday. If you're a member, we'll see you in a few hours. Until then, be safe, be well, courage.
Please clap.